Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, and today we're discussing chapters 4 through 6.
Previously in Amari and the Great Game. So what had happened whenever we start off this book? It's the last day of school, and Amari and Elsie are going on field trips, which, I mean, kudos to their teachers and staff, because I feel like if it's the last week of school, whenever I was in school, we might have like a field day, but they're not taking us nowhere, because no.
That's a lot of planning and logistics.
And they're already tired and done with
and they trying to be out here too, you know? They got planes to catch.
Yes. They got
second jobs to finish start,
packing for, you know. Nah. So kudos to them. There's also a Shakespearean monologues going on basically by a teacher. So that also sounds fun. Which is great because we see what happens to Amari once we start this episode. But before Elsie, the president of the soup club at their school, decides that she's going to call the members together for one final meeting for the year, and she says it's an emerge and see. And Amari's like, I do not believe this girl in her emergencies, but I'm gonna come through. And we get a whole like fun thing with that. And what she has for them are fortune cookies that are like very rare and specific. And when Amari gets hers tells her to beware unseen dangers after she asks her very vague question. So she's a vague answer and response, and we're all just sitting here just unsure. Even while on the bus to the aquarium, Amari is actually hit with more some specificities, including specifically that Elsie is now been accepted to Oxford University to study and will likely have to move to Oxford to attend university as a 13-year-old. Yeah, you heard it. Yep, she's that girl. But also, it's the first time Amari's been able to have a friend at school that she's so close with, and so she's feeling some feelings. And sadly, Elsie can read her feelings because of auras, and it's not great. We also have her in the midst of feeling all these emotions when the whole bus, except for her, is caught in a time freeze. And when the time restarts, that's whenever the people who are interrelated with the borough get red alerts about the freeze, and it says that it covered most of Georgia and that there's an investigation that is ongoing to figure out what had happened. Meanwhile, this is all happening. They're all trying to figure out this alert, and here comes the bigot of the group, Bear, being the hater, and just showcasing all of his bigotry and saying that they're going to blame magicians and saying Amari's first one up out of here. She's that girl and she's the problem. Right after he says all of that, Amari gets a message. She's been uninvited from the Bureau summer camp and everything is up in the air for her. And that's where we left that last episode of Wizard Team.
Whew. We talked about the pacing of this book, and I want to say that, like, again, B.B. Alston does not disappoint, because we're in chapter 4, and she has been uninvited from camp. And, like, the story ain't even started yet. Yeah. So the storm also knocked out all of the power at the aquarium, so they get all the way there, only to turn back around and end up at school watching Macbeth. But Amari's not really watching Macbeth because she got stuff on her mind.
We also didn't really talk about, like, we talked about last episode about their teacher and how she like does this Shakespeare thing, but also I don't think we really like dwelled on the fact that this is a one-woman show. Like, she's not including the kids. She's not like, here everybody gets a script and we're gonna we're gonna do
It's
Macbeth.
giving she was the best adult volunteer at the library. She's like, everyone enjoys when I read the story to the kids, so I'm gonna give the story to the kids.
She's been waiting her whole life for
she's
this.
she's been directing these children in these terrible plays all year, and she said no.
I'm gonna show you how a professional does it.
For once, we will have quality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give what needs to be given. I'm going to recite Shakespeare with the gravitas of a person who has lived life.
Who actually appreciates the bard and what he has to say, this iambic pentameter. But also, I think it's funny because it's also like, she's like, it may be the final week of school, but y'all pull out your notes.
Right.
Yeah.
Pull out your notes. Get ready.
Amari is back in the auditorium, sitting there while Macbeth is happening on the stage, but she's lost in her thoughts. Elsie and the teacher, Mr. Powell, I believe, or I can't 100% remember, immediately when they got back to the school, went off to the principal's office to spread the word about Oxford. So she doesn't have Elsie to kind of like grapple with this news that she's been uninvited to camp or make a plan or process. So she decides that she's going to get on the other net and send Maria Van Helsing a message, because Maria is the only other known magician who would have possibly been affected, right? So she, I think Elsie said that she was in training or something to start teaching for camp. So she's, if Amari's being uninvited to camp, then she's thinking like maybe Maria got a similar message or something, and she can help me kind of figure out what's going on. But when she tries to get on the other net, she can't access it. And she says, like, it feels like not only has she been uninvited to camp, but she's being kicked out of the supernatural world as a whole. And we'll get into like later when we hear the Deputy Prime Minister Bain like spewing all of his hatred and stuff, but like she is basically being pushed out of the supernatural world or being marginalized again.
Yeah, and it's not like no one has talked to her.
Yeah, she just got a form letter, basically.
Right. She's just like, oh, they're just like, oh, yeah, you can't come. Oh, you're blocked out of, like, nobody has come to ask what, you know what I mean, where she was. No one has done any investigation.
Message.
Nobody has checked in on her. Like, you know, at least. But like when they found out she was a magician, they all gathered together in a meeting and like discussed it with her, right? And like, not that was like the greatest meeting ever, but there was a process that happened as opposed to this just being like, oh, nope, you're gone, bye. And it's like she still has magic. She's still like, you're not really
revoking her ability to like be part of the world. She still has her true sight. She can still see.
Yeah. So it's like, what is she supposed to do? There's no other like instruction. It's just
there isn't even like we'll send you more.
That's what I'm saying. There's not even a message.
Like we don't have the instructions yet, or you know what I mean. But like, please stand by while we figure out, you know, what's happening. So she's just out floating, basically. She tries to text Elsie, but she can't. But Elsie can't talk because her parents came down to the school, or at least her mom, and so they're all discussing Oxford, and so Elsie's got her own stuff going on,
right?
Which is also something that makes Amari feel alone, right? Like,
it's bad timing because she's already like, I don't know what to do. I can't actually contact anyone in this world except for Elsie, but Elsie's in the, you know, she's doing this thing that's going to take her away from me. And on top of that, she's supposed to give me a ride home. So now I got to get on the bus. Like, it's just like, which again, it's not like it's Elsie's fault. It's just like bad timing. Just all these things are happening at once. And she's
the one good thing about the bus ride is that like it's not a magical bus ride. So at least she's not going to be like surrounded by people who hate her on the bus, you know?
Sort of.
Surrounded.
Can you hear the
Yeah.
dogs? I can't get her back in the
Probably.
house. One thing about dogs, they're dumb, but they're like dumb in a way that is vast and surprising every single time. Where were we? So Elsie can't talk or discuss like what Amari thing is, because she's busy figuring out and discussing Oxford with her parents and with the school. And it's also one of those things I think about, like, your friend gets good news around the same time that you're dealing with like difficult news.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, you're the person who I would ask to comfort me, but in asking you to like comfort me or help me like work through this bad news, does that mean I'm then taking away from or like distracting from you celebrating yourself? And I don't want to do that, right? And we talked about in like the last episode how Amari's grappling with just learning about Elsie even applying to Oxford and then getting into Oxford, and then is she going to Oxford? Is she then staying over the summer for summer camp? Which I still don't understand why that's a thing. People come home in the summer.
Yeah, well, I
if
mean,
her
we'll
mom
get
is
to her
moving over
mom.
there, then
I was gonna say we'll get to her
Yeah,
mom.
but her mom
I
decides
also
to move over
feel like
there because she's going, which I get. I mean, she's going to be early, like she's going to be what,
she's
14 in
yeah.
university. So I
No,
get
that's
like
not
not
the issue, but I think it's I don't know. I
but
think
I'm
like you
saying
would,
home is where her mom is, and so if her mom is there, then that's home.
right.
but it would seem to me, first off, in a world in which you have like transporters and you can like have portals and stuff. My family moved when my brother went to college. So his first summer home was in a completely different city than like where he left college for. And I remember like him always like, I mean, we didn't move that far. We moved 2 hours down the freeway, but still I remember him like coming home and then driving back up to Anaheim to like see his friends and stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, you want to be home is where your parents are, but that's also not the sole like definition of home. Like you want to be somewhere where you feel comfortable and like have a break from school and all of that change. You know, you want like just somewhere familiar with familiar people. So to me, it just feels like, and we'll get there. But like Elsie should come back to the bureau in Atlanta for summer camp, especially because like basically she's going like to university and then like their camp is like a boarding school. So like,
I'm also interested because her family's like rich or whatever, and I'm also interested in like whether that her mother sees her being at the London Bureau as like a networking opportunity, and thus like circles that her mom wants her to like interact with or whatever.
It still just feels to me that like you should like, I'm fine with like her mom transferring to the London Bureau and them going there during the school year, but it still feels to me like the decision should be, but you'll come back to the Atlanta summer camp.
Yeah. Yes. I agree that that's the most like that feels the most logical or like feels like it would make sense. But we'll get more into her mom.
Yeah.
Because I think there are other reasons.
There are, yeah, yeah. So when she tries to, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll save it for later.
So then she tries to like, so she can't access the other net. Elsie can't talk because her parents are there. She gets on the bus for this 45-minute ride home, and she's sitting next to this orc who, like, she's talking about, like, how, kind of reminds me of, like, economic disparity, I guess. Like, you see people and they're talking about, like, what the people on the bus can, like, how they're dressed or things like that. So, like, this orc has like the bare minimum of camouflage, so it's like it's basically like a perception filter for people. And so Amari's looking at the orc, and the orc is giving her the like stink eye, and Amari's like, I'm used to this. Sometimes it's like, don't perceive me, but sometimes it's like I'm on this bus and it's hot and I'm just not happy to be here. So she tries to engage with the orc, tells them that their newspaper is upside down. The orc looks at her funny, starts to talk to her, realizes that she's the Amari Peters, the magician, and then kind of runs away scared. So she's just like, also, ain't nobody trying to engage with me. Even the like most marginalized and outskirts of like the supernatural society are scared of me and don't want to interact. So she gets back to the wood, which is the Rosewood Projects, sees Jaden, and then immediately feels like bad and guilty because her first thought is like, oh, I won't be able to watch out for him at camp and like be his friend at camp like we planned because I've been uninvited. And I thought that this was so interesting because when Amari goes to camp last year in the Amari and the Night Brothers, her first year at camp, Quentin's missing. Quentin is not even at camp. Like if he wasn't missing, he would have been like an agent and not like a teaching agent because that was like something that him and Maria were discussing. And he would have just been like out in the world. And maybe, I mean, we would like to think that he would, come by or help Amari get set up and like walk her through the process and stuff. But like, she doesn't get that at all. And she's just kind of thrown into the deep end. Plus she has the whole magician thing. And so I think that it just shows how caring and awesome Amari is, that like her first thing is like, oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to look out for him. And so, and especially because Jaden gives off the vibes of someone who is like, I don't need no help. He even told her about like the site and stuff when he was going, like he got it, but in her brain, she's planning on not like, oh, I'm sad because we won't get to hang out at camp, or like he'll have to make his own friends at camp or whatever, but like I won't be able to look out for him.
And I think it's also like she probably or definitely needed somebody to look out for her when she was there. And like obviously when he goes, the expectation is not that he's going to be another born magician and have to like deal with all of that, but it's still like it's a new environment. It's like very different from where they are growing up. And
even beyond the magician part, like there was a lot of times in which people would like look at Amari because she's like a scholarship kid or she's not like a leg.
Exactly. Like there's like the classism part.
That
so
Jaden will have to deal with.
Right.
And he hasn't been in private school and stuff like her, so it might be his first time that he actually has to like stay in the same room with people who are acting that way with him.
Right.
Yeah. And he's been like, when we saw Jaden in the first book, he's like running with the rougher crowd too. So like, who's to say that like someone don't look at Jaden funny and he, gives them the good old 1-2, you know what I mean? So like, it's just, I don't know. It just like, to me, it just made me feel like good for her and sad that like, that was her reaction. And she kind of runs away so she doesn't have to like engage or talk to him because she doesn't want to have to tell him she's been uninvited. She's still kind of feeling like she's gonna, or kind of thinking like, her and Elsie will make a plan or something. That's not, all hope is not lost, but she is losing hope. So as she's going back to her house, she sees Miss Walters the witch isn't in the window. And that's strange because that lady is always in the window and is nosy. And she thinks like, oh, maybe she'll be able to give me more information about this time freeze. Knocks on the door. The door like is open. Or unlocked. Open.
I think it's like cracked open.
Slightly ajar.
Slightly ajar. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not locked, it's not closed, but like you still have to make a decisive
You didn't have to do very much for the door to pop open.
Right.
But you still had
it was closed enough for you to not be messing with the door.
Yeah.
But I also think when doors are like slightly ajar, if you're expecting them to be closed, it kind of is like, is something wrong? So then it makes you feel like you should open the door because you're like, do I need to check on somebody? But you also can't be walking up into people's houses. So it's a whole complicated.
It's a whole thing. Where does the when Good Samaritanship goes wrong or something? Right. I don't know what it is, but it's a thing. It's a choice that Amari decides at the chance she took. And this is back to the whimsy that I would like in my world.
Literally. It's so nice. And
there's
it's so
like
black. It's just like
it is so black. There's boxes and it looks like someone's packing up, and then she sees a shirt folding shirts and laundry, and she said brings a new meaning to the word to work shirts. And I was like, I love that. That's hilarious. But also, I got a pile of clothes on my bed.
They just fold themselves.
Do y'all also put yourselves away? Because that would also
Woo!
be,
you know,
that would be perfect.
Laundry is literally, I don't know if we talked about this before, but it is like the thing that like solidifies, one, that I have ADHD, and two, that like adulting is not for the weak of heart. Because it's not, because the thing is that like everyone's like, oh, I have to do laundry, as if that's one task. Laundry is literally like 15 tasks in a trench coat.
It's like doing doing your hair. It's like, I gotta do my hair. Well, that's a lot of steps for doing my hair.
A lot of you gotta, like, if you are, you know, if you care about the quality of your clothes and you're even a little bit responsible, you gotta sort. Then you gotta wash. And then this part, which I still haven't gotten the hang of, you have to take it out of the washer and into the dryer in a reasonable amount of time.
But also, some of that stuff has to be hang dried.
It has to be
so then you got to sort through what has to be hang dried and what goes in the dryer.
That's why your pre-sort has to include a sort for the air dry. We always sort our air dry.
My problem is I don't have enough space to be air drying all my clothes at the same time. So when I was cleaning my closet, I was like, all right, some of these, I was going in the order of, okay, I have space to hang dry these. And then the rest of it is I'm not going to wash them yet until these are dry so that I can like switch them out. Ridiculous.
And then the worst part is, I don't know if this has happened to any of y'all, if you do not take it out of the wash in enough time, it starts to smell a little bit moldy. So you got to wash it again.
Yeah. When you live in a shared space, it's harder for that to be a problem.
Do you know how many times I would get down to my shared space and someone would have thrown my clothes on a table and I'd be like, you right. It's gross, and I gotta pay. Now I gotta pay to wash it again. But also, you're right. I was tripping. I wasn't quick with it. Yeah, that was also why when I was moving, I was like, I have to have my own washer and dryer. I cannot.
Yeah,
I can't live like that. Anyway, so say all that to say, self-folding work shirt. Sign me up. So then she Miss Walters is like, excuse me, you just walking in folks' house. And then someone from the back is like, and ask her if she plays spades, which Amari is offended by. And also, this is not a safe enough space.
I can't play spades. It's safe. It's
okay,
fine.
Cool. It's a safe space. I'm in California.
Yeah, I'm like,
I can't play spades. And the problem
play dominoes.
is that I was too young. No one wanted to teach me. And then there's like this moment in which someone's supposed to teach you. And now I'm like, people are like, you can't play spades? I'm like, who was supposed to, no one wanted to teach me. Look at Porshèa.
No one teaches you spades. That's the sad thing about it. Like, so please let me know if someone who's listening, if someone took you aside kindly one day and was like, you're gonna learn spades today, because that is not what happens to me in my experience.
That's what I
was expecting.
That's what I gleaned. That was
That was not my experience.
It's not you sit down and play
where you sit in and just figure it out.
It was literally, I want to say I think I was in a double digits by the time that I was allowed into the room where spades was happening.
Yeah, you get kicked out the room.
Because it's a whole separate space. They drinking over there. You're not allowed to be where they're drinking like that. So they drinking over there. You're not really supposed to be over there like that. So when I was allowed to be in the space where they were playing spades, you sit, you observe. If it seemed like I think it's a confluence of things. Like one, somebody has to sit out a game. They're about to go. They need another head or whatever. You coming in because you're the only person sitting around there. You might get lucky. You might get called to the table, but you can't play. You can't play with them cards once you're at the table. Once you're at the table, you better keep watch. And you better be like, if the person who's playing with you or whatever, who's on your team, y'all coordinate. They will walk you through things as you're playing together. That's how I first learned Spades, at least, was that you get it into the table, you sit there, you listen to whatever your teammate tells you, and then you're like, okay, and you pull it together. And that is why there have been times where I'm like, do I even remember how to play Spades? And then I get back to the table and I'm like, okay, no, I got it. It's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
You gotta be there.
I would have to I don't know if my parents know how to play Spades. Like, I've just never asked them. I could see my dad for sure, but my dad taught me how to play dominoes, so I can do that. Like, I feel like that's usually the thing that like when I go
maybe that's like the
when we go to like our
thing.
like maybe I don't know, but I like when we do like our like family / black
leave it
not all related, but like those kinds of gatherings, dominoes is usually the one that like we end up playing. So like I remember watching dominoes, and I remember like now I'll like sit in and play sometimes, but yeah, Spades I never
picked up dominoes, but
dominoes is easy because it's math. It's addition. Like it's not. It's 5. It's pretty easy. Here's my thing: is that like
I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I've seen them on tables, but I don't know what the things mean. Yeah.
When it's explained, it's like very easy to explain, and it's very easy to just be like, okay, got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But here's the thing,
and then of course because it's Black people, it's a whole lot of shit talking.
Yeah, with Spades, with Spades, the main thing is with Spades, the main thing is you can't renege. Like if you put it down, you're down on it, and if you messed up, your teammates gonna they're gonna be like, nah, who's the next person up? They gotta go. They're not playing the game, and you can't be in your feelings because you messed up. So you got to get on out the game. So once you mess up, you got to get out the game. That's once that
Amari
game is over.
Is how old? Amari is 12 at this point now.
13.
And she has like this, like, how dare they ask me if I know how to play Spades? That is like an insult.
But she has Quentin as a big brother, so like. And if anyone was gonna teach her how to play Spades, it would have been Quentin.
Yeah,
but she also lives in an area where there's probably more like if they're having a block party, they probably have a Spades table at the block party. Like she's probably been around Spades. Like it's like a thing that happens every summer or something for her.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't know. I felt very triggered by that scene. I'm not lying because it's like it's like point of contention where like the talk of Spades, like my job my previous job, there's not enough Black people at my current job, but at my previous job, the Black Slack channel was called the Spades Table, and I felt a way about it. A little bit.
You felt like an outsider, and with your own folk, you were just like,
Well, just like a thing where it's like, okay, so my mom had this whole, I don't know if I've talked about this before. Did you know, like, so the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday song?
Oh, yeah, but I don't know.
My mom will bring it up now.
Yeah.
We have talked about it on the podcast?
No, I said I don't know if we have. I just remember when you texted me about it, and I was like, yeah, nah, I didn't know.
So the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday song was written as like...
Oh, and this is perfect timing. Because...
Oh, this is perfect timing. Yeah. Wow. It was written to like advocate for them to make Martin Luther King Jr. Day a national holiday. My mom one day, they were back in COVID times, their church started doing these like birthday parades. So they would just all get in like a car, or everyone would get like in their car and then drive by someone's house and like do like a happy birthday thing, and they come outside. So, it's like socially distant and safe. But so she's like, can you download the Martin Luther King song but just like the chorus part so that I can play it on repeat.
She's wrong for describing
And
it
I
that
said-
Why
way.
would you call it that?
She's wrong for describing it that way.
So I said, what? What song is that? Can you download the Martin Luther King song?
When did Martin Luther King sing? That's what I want to know. When did he
song
drop
is
an
that?
album? What album?
She said,
What's the name of that album?
how do you not know the Stevie Wonder? I said, the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday?
That's the Black Happy
The
Birthday
Black
song.
Happy
Birthday song.
That's what I was introduced to. And I only know the chorus.
The Black Happy Birthday
Same.
song. How do you
Same.
not know that was a big piece of Black girl? We only sing the chorus. I only
And
hear the chorus. We only
You would
play
be the person to tell
chorus.
me this. I remember
And you
because you,
should-
like,
exactly.
Robyn came up to me and was like, so did you know that the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday was about Martin Luther King? I was like, nope, sure didn't. And then I remember we went and asked my
I
mom.
probably was near your parents. I said, see? Because
We asked my mom. My mom was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I don't know if it was your mom or mine talking about the verses. I was like, you think I know what he's saying in the verses?
It's like knowing the verses for the actual Black national anthem. Like,
Exactly.
lift your voice and
I
sing.
know the
I'm like,
first
bro.
one. I know
bro,
the first one because
I got
that's
the
what y'all
first
taught
stanza.
me.
And that's
First
it.
one.
And that's
The
it.
first one.
Because y'all never really
You
go
gotta
to
be
the
in Jack and Jill or have gone to an HBCU.
No,
I went to HBCU.
My
I went to
grandma
HBCU,
went to
and they
my mom.
they expected us to know the freaking whole
Your grandmother
thing. And I
was
like,
hanging
My
out
grandmother
with
went to
Zora Neale
Fisk
Hurston.
Well, no. Well, she went to Fisk and was a singing mate. That's not the word, but like she majored in like singing and yeah. So like, of course she knows all three, and we used to go to like these like Black celebrations, gatherings, Kwanzaa celebrations, whoop de whoop, and she would always be like throwing shade because they would always only do the first verse. And it was the funniest thing to me, except I never had the heart to tell her.
Nobody ever teaches.
I've never had the heart to tell her that I only know the first verse too.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you studied this. I didn't. None of us studied it. We were just
and
told.
you didn't.
That was part of your curriculum.
And
That's
you
not
never
everybody's
play
curriculum.
the whole
that was
song.
the specific
They never play the whole
curriculum for
song.
your program.
So in what world?
No.
In what world do I, the child of the person who only ever plays the chorus and most of the time sings it, I don't even know when. I mean, I knew it was Stevie Wonder, but I feel like that was a shock to me, even that it was a recorded song. I just thought that like we just put some funk on a Happy Birthday song. I don't really I know I knew it was Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday song, but like we don't even play the song half the time. We just start singing it.
We do sometimes. It depends. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. If somebody got their phone or whatever connected to the speaker, then it's like, all right, let me pull it up. But like for the most part,
they
just
skip
sing it.
to the chorus.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
So how was I supposed to learn Spades?
I feel like drawing this back to where we came from here was like
Black people don't teach each other. We don't teach the generations. The same with recipes.
Yes.
We lose in recipes.
My thing is that like if we're not the Black experience is not universal. We all know that.
Right.
And Spades is not always the universal language that everyone's gonna pick up, but everybody knows about Spades. Like even if you don't know how to play Spades, you know the significance it has on the culture, though.
Yeah, but I think the thing too about Black people, and then we need to move on. But this is my last thing: is the shame, because like this is how I'm going to bridge back into into Amari. The shame that comes along when we also are not teaching the children. You can't shame me for not knowing a thing you never taught me.
Right.
Like I was talking to my friends about, so Luna's birthday was last week. I threw her a party at the dog park, kind of. There was just 3 dogs. And one of my friend's dog is a corgi. And he was yelling at his corgi because his corgi was trying to herd Luna and Coco. And I was like, stop yelling at him. He is doing what he was bred to do. Like, it is in his DNA. It's hardwired. Like, and he was like, I just don't want people to think that, like, I'm not paying attention, right? Or, like, I'm just going to let my dog bark all up on their dogs. And I'm like, I understand that because I own a pit bull or a pit bull looking dog, a bully breed. So I totally get the, like, performative dog ownership as well. But it's it's my dog, and I'm telling you, stop yelling at your dog. It's like the only thing I'm worried about. And I already told him this. I was like, Luna doesn't take well to like hurting when she's playing fetch. And at one point she ran through Joseph so hard. And he tumbled.
That's the corgi.
That's the corgi. The corgi is Joey.
Name your dog Joseph. That's hilarious.
His name is Joey, but I call him Joseph, Hosea, Hostess.
Got it.
Jose.
I was like, it's just such a. Got you. Okay, cool.
She body checked that boy. And I was like, see, you don't get in the way of Luna. Ain't nothing get in between her and that ball. But we were talking about how like you don't have to teach a corgi how to herd, right? Like they just all of a sudden, like Joey is from San Diego. He ain't seen a sheep in his life, but y'all start running around and he gonna be like, get in line, get in order. Luna, the first time she pointed, I was like, who taught you how to do that? You not retrieving no bird. I'm not shooting nothing. You not retrieving nothing. Like, why are you pointing at these? Like, who? It's hardwired in their DNA. Spades is not hardwired in our DNA. Obviously, because I don't know how to play it. And I'm Black. 4 Black grandparents. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm Black. Stop shaming us for stuff that y'all don't teach us.
I think it's okay, but I think that's a specific beef you got to have with your family and not with the group thread for being named after Spades.
No. I have that with all Black people in general, probably mostly like Black people of my parents' ilk, when they try to shame you for not knowing something that they should have taught you.
That's okay. That's them. But it's not Black people in
not
general aren't responsible for teaching you how to teaching you how to do spades.
Well, but you guys are responsible for shaming me into like being quiet when the place is named Spades Table, and I'm just gonna pretend.
But it's just the name of it.
I'm gonna just pretend like I know. And then they be like, everybody know how to play spades, and I'd be like, everybody,
Did they talk about only spades in there? Is that like that's my thing?
No, but like whenever we would do like meetups and stuff, they're like, well, we have a spades table, and I'd be like, of course we're gonna have a spades. It's just the like assuming that we all know how to play, and then like it making it so it's scary to be like, I don't know how to play this game. You don't know the fear, Porshèa, because you know how to play spades.
I know. I just like, honestly, I'm just such a curious person that I do understand shame. My thing is, and like being timid because of shame, but then I'm also like, if I'm curious, I'll just be like, so remind me, refresh me, give me a little quick review.
I guess for me, you could also just go in and be like, look, I don't know how to play. So y'all either gonna tell me how to play or you're gonna be quiet about it. Thanks.
Yep. If it's just like, if you're not bothered, like the fact that like it's at this point you've reached the years where you're like, I'm just never gonna pick up spades, and that's completely fine by me. I'm just not gonna do it. Then just be like, just own that. Just be like, I get it. I get that it's a cultural touch point, but it ain't got nothing to do with me.
I don't know. I'm just run on shame, I guess. I just feel tremendous guilt. I talk about it with my therapist on like all the time.
The guilt.
She's like,
I have a lot of guilt.
She's like, I don't understand how you feel guilty about some of the things you feel guilty about. I'm like, neither do I, but I do. Okay? I feel like I failed. Thank you. So
that was a long tangent.
I feel like we know each other better, listener. So she walks into the house. She decides that she's going to play spades with Miss Walter and Mrs. Walter's guests. But then, bum, she finds out that not only is there not one Miss Walter, there are 3 Miss Walters. Maybe possibly 4 Miss Walters. And
I love her. This is the whimsy that I love. I'm like, I love how Amari starts putting all of the threads together. She's like, wait a minute.
That's why your ass is always in the window, because there's 3 of y'all.
I remember that one time I was at the grocery store and I ran into you, and then I came back home and you was in the window already.
In the window, and I was like, how'd that happen? You were leaving when you were walking in, and you still beat us home. They let her know they could only get 1 fake ID, so they all are Miss Walters. Because they're wanted criminals.
Oh my gosh!
And one of them is like, "Yo, she worked for the she
bureau. She's the feds.
She with the bureau.
She's not even just in the bureau. She is part of the investigation.
She is part of the feds, right?
Right. She's a real narc.
She's an actual agent.
And then the other one was like, she got bigger things to worry about. Oh, little Miss Magician girl over there. I love the whole interaction.
Yeah.
And then we find out, Amari's like, wait. You said 4 of you. I only see 3 of you. And they're like, Dottie is the 4th witch, but she over there in that jar as a frog because she was caught cheating at Spades. And so if you get caught cheating, you have to spend an hour in the jar as a frog. And I love how they're like, you have to spend an hour in the jar. They don't mention the fact that Dottie is a frog. Like like Amari sees that Dottie is a frog, but they be like, the punishment is that you spend an hour in the jar. I'm like, is this the punishment that that you turned her into a frog?
Right.
Who spends an hour in the jar?
They're green witches. So what's being a frog?
It's a
I guess.
Prong,
and it's temporary.
Though.
It's not like it's not like you're a frog forever because you cheated at.
And I bet you in their mind they're like, well, what were you gonna not turn you into a frog so that you can't really fit in the jar? The punishment should be in the jar, and we were nice enough to make her small enough to fit in the jar.
But also, it's like, like they chose you're a frog, so you're not like an insect in the jar, and also you're in a jar, so you're not like they in a distinct jar, so it's not like there's like they're gonna just forget about you. Or those spells not going to wear off, and they're gonna mistakenly use you as an ingredient for one of their potions because they know that it's you in the jar for
you're in the cheating Spades jar.
Yeah, you're in the penalty jar.
Penalty jar.
I love it. So Amari then decides, and this is another thing I love about Amari. She believes in her sauce. Okay. And so she's like, well, you know what? I ain't trying to get caught. Well, I'm not going to cheat, but I'm also, these witches ain't nothing to play with. So I'm going to play Spades for as long as it takes for me to get as much information about this time freeze as possible, because the Mrs. Walters, as they become known, are always in that window. They know all the tea. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to play witches Spades with the weird rules for as long as I can to get as much info as possible, and then I'm gonna get out, and then I'm out. I'm gonna slide out graciously but quickly. I'm not trying to win Spades. I'm just trying to. Spades is gonna last as long as it takes.
You know who could learn from this just a little bit? Bree
Matthews. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I'm gonna have an exit plan.
An exit plan? You got a plan for an exit?
Just having.
You mean you can plan for how you're going to make it out of a situation you want to get into?
An escape plan.
Yep. It's okay.
Amari, 13.
Amari was like, okay, cool. Plan. Especially because she's not trying to become a frog in a jar, and she realizes very quickly that she doesn't actually know
how to not
what the rules are, because again, it's Spades. They're not teaching her what the witches' rules are. They're just like, these are this is
get it, sit down,
steal your card,
play the game,
and that's not cheating. So what is cheating actually? What could I do to cheat? So she's like, I got to get in and out as quickly as possible.
Get in and get out.
Because I'm not trying to spend an hour in a jar as a frog.
If stealing my cards blatantly too,
right?
Can you even can you like? She wasn't. She said she watched her card get up and walk out of the and then old Mrs. Walters said, well,
On top of the fact that she's thinking that the Mrs. Walters that took it, she's thinking that's her teammate.
They're on the same team.
They said nope, it's every witch for herself. So it's so many things.
Also, my thing of like this passage to me gave me like, there's no way, and this is true for a lot of entertainment games. There's no way this game has not started a fight before. Because
100%.
Definitely. They put each other in jars.
Yeah.
And that's the that's the agreed upon.
Even the kind of like decks that they have and what the kind of punishments that are like, I know there's been fights from these games. I know there's been
definitely
fights.
I wouldn't believe you if you told me there weren't. So they're playing, and then Amari very, nonchalantly, it's like, so that time freeze, that was wild, huh? What y'all know about that? And I love how black the scene is, because like the witches are like, play first, gossip second. We will gossip, but let's just make sure that you are playing your hands, right? And then they're like, it's more strange. Like, the time freeze is one thing, but what's more strange is what we haven't seen and what we haven't heard, which is that like anytime there's a little hiccup, old Prime Minister Merlin be all up on your TV, all up on your Ethernet, and we ain't heard a peep from him. And it seems like Bane, who's the deputy minister, is the one calling the shots right now. And so that is why we are getting up out of here. Like, they were like, we ain't heard from Merlin, and it seems like Bane's in charge, and we don't trust this man. So Bane, the deputy prime minister, is a Wraith. And we learned this in the first book, I believe, when they talked about the Great War, but like basically the Wraiths are like victims of that big war with the Night Brothers. And so they are like spirits, they're like half corporeal. And that is just like, they weren't born, they were made, basically.
They were cursed. Yeah, they're cursed by
they're cursed.
It's the living death curse, I think, is what it's called.
So
I will say too, just briefly, and also kind of funny, now I'm realizing I must say this. The last two magical creatures we saw an orc and we saw a wraith. Both of those are in Lord of the Rings. But anyway, the point is that I do love, and we probably mentioned it in the last, like when we were talking about the Night Brothers, just like how many different like supernatural creatures there are, and how they're just like from all different kinds of lore, and they all just kind of like, pop up and have different experiences and things going on. So I love when we just get like a new one that's introduced. This one is the worst. I don't know. I'm not all wraiths, but this particular wraith is the worst. But
just not all wraiths. Hashtag
exist in the world, I think, is interesting.
So I do also like the idea of like mythological characters that we understand, and have their own mythology, having kind of a new origin story. And so I think that Amari kind of does this, because I've never seen something where a wraith is, or at one point was human and then was like cursed into wraithdom. I've never read a story like that before.
I mean, I didn't Lord of the Rings.
Maybe.
I lied.
Well,
I did read Lord of the Rings, but I do not remember that's what they were called, because it's been that long of a time.
Well, they're called Nazgul, but wraith is another name for it, because J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't know how to just give things one name. So
now Nazgul rings a bell.
Yeah.
Wraiths?
But they're wraiths. They're ring wraiths. Because they were... We don't have to get into it. We don't have to do it again.
Have y'all seen Doctor Strange and the Have you seen Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness?
I saw it, yeah. Just once, though.
But whenever he's like going up the mountain in the zombie body and they're all attacking him, That's what a wraith
Mhm.
looks like in my head. Is that correct?
I mean, I think so like the way that they describe Bane later when we see him is more like he's in black and white.
That's what the wraiths kind of were in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I don't
What
remember.
I think, because they're like Stephen Strange and they're just like fighting him on the.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
Well, that's
I
what's
have
in
to.
my
I
head.
need to see it again. In Lord of the
You
Rings,
don't
they
have
look
to.
more like ghosts. It's not really ghosts. It depends. We don't
I'm
have
just
to
gonna
get
pull up
into
the
it. It's
image for
fine.
you. I'm sorry. This is just a whole tangent on, but like I like you said, like the lore is cool, so it's fun to like sit and conjecture about it for a second. That's why I was
Mhm.
thinking, like, whenever you were saying that like they're cursed with this life after death kind of thing, that's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, oh dang, what would I hate more? Like living out life as a wraith or living out life as a zombie?
A zombie because you have to eat brains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be disgusting.
No thanks.
And your body's like deteriorating, and when you're a wraith, you don't really have a body anymore.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
literally like decaying.
Yeah.
You have
Right,
a
whereas
body
as
as a wraith, but you're like in and out of corporeal form, which I think is
Right.
annoying. And like, you know, like you go to like reach for a door and all of a sudden you're going through the door. Like that's like it's off kilter. But I have
Mhm.
anxiety. I live life off kilter. I'd rather do that than I always
Right.
feel a little bit like, you know, as opposed to like, you know, losing my finger just falling off because it is in smell. I think the smell is probably
Yeah.
mhm.
But how good
I'm
is your sense of
curious.
smell whenever it's the
my sense of smell is terrible, but the idea of like the other day, this dog is nuts. The other day, someone came over and I was like, "Does it smell like dog in here? Can you let me know?" And I lit a candle just in case.
I mean,
But I
yeah,
was like,
that's gonna make things better, not put a smell on top of smells.
I don't know. I can't smell. I'm like, I don't want you to be sitting here awful because Coco stinks.
Poor Coco.
I mean, she's getting weekly baths. She got a bath yesterday, so.
No, I'm just saying, like Coco has so many things going
So many
against
things.
her right now because she be doing. It sounds like she does a lot, so it's funny. It's just like poor Coco.
She's going through it.
Yes.
But yeah, I
We should
think
move
I'm
on.
also curious about, and we can move on. And probably maybe it'll come up again like in later when we like see Bane. Obviously, he's gonna show up again more.
Mhm.
Curious about how race like experience the world because they are
Mhm.
sort of like in this in between space. And like again, not to go deep into Lord of the Rings, but just briefly, like I know with those wraiths, like you see them in like your living world or whatever, but there's also this like it's not quite like death, but there's this other like hidden world and they kind of exist on both planes at the same time. And so I'm curious if that's like similar for these wraiths, if they like exist on different planes or if the world looks black and white to them because they've kind of been pulled sort of out of it in some ways, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just an interesting like bit of world building that is I'm curious to know more about, but also I don't want to have to deal with Bane to get that information. So
Bane to me, and I'm gonna keep it 100. Bane to me is if it's what like the you know we talk about like please go see a therapist, like please go get like deal with your like his PTSD has run amok. His PTSD is like taken over and has now become a like policy. It's giving Tony fucking Stark is what it's giving.
Well, no, I don't think it's quite Tony Stark. I think that
It's worse than Tony Stark.
I would say it's a lot worse. I think it's revenge. Like it's a different thing. Like
it is revenge.
Like
it's not just but it's not just
but
revenge.
it's not just that. I'm saying it's not just like I wouldn't say it's just therapy. I think yes, therapy could help. But you have to like want that help and you have to think that how you're moving around is wrong, right? Like in his head, it just kind of solidified
he's justified in his head.
He's justified in whatever he's doing.
And the Walter's saying like he has
grudge.
He has a vendetta against magicians, and it's like open. And so they say Merlin is who has kept him in check. But if he's in charge, then we gotta
how
go.
did he ascend so far? Wait,
Hello?
right there. Wait.
Hello?
Wait. We're talking ahead of the chapters that we're supposed to be getting into.
You're
Right,
right,
so
but
let's finish this
still.
part.
I
'Cause
mean,
I
that
got-
was a question I had when I was reading this particular chapter. Was like, how did he
Yeah.
become deputy
Get-
minister?
That was my question here too. But I know,
Yeah.
but I
Not
know
only
we're
that,
gonna get
but,
more
like,
information that's
when
gonna
we
make
talk
it
about,
even worse.
so like she says, I'd have to like look it up, but I'm trying to like, get us through here. The war was centuries ago. And like she says at some point, I don't think it's in this chapter or me, but like he's not even plotting revenge against the people who he fought against. Like now this is like their like it's the descendants of those people, or people who have like, like Amari is out here 13 years old. She was not around centuries ago. She should be able to go to camp.
Right.
And she's a born magician, so she didn't really have a say in it anyway. Not that they care. And so my question as well is not only how did he get that far, because like Trump was president in this world.
I
So,
get that.
you know what I'm saying?
Also,
Like
I'm also just like
January 6th, there was a bunch of people out there. You know what I'm saying? I understand. I'm not naive to like the levels of hatred that can rise in the ranks and all that stuff. My question is, how is he still there?
Right.
Where are the supernatural millennials being like, you're too old? You've been deputy prime minister my whole life.
We're millennials, and look at how we are with all the boomers who are in office.
And we mad at them.
But I'm gonna say Merlin is immortal. Essentially, he has been the.
So what are the? When do they vote?
For 700 years. They don't.
Is this a democracy?
Like.
It don't see. Is it a monarchy? What is going on? I don't know. Also, in the next chapter, he just declares that he's acting prime minister. So like,
we're not there.
We're not there yet. Sorry. Oh, that's like, yeah, you're right. Anyway, what are the term limits? Is the question that I have that I need an answer to. Mr. Alston, sir, what are the term limits? So Amari gets her questions asked, and then they're like, okay, but you got to play your last hand. She's like, oh, y'all noticed that, right? She loses the hand. She plays an ace, but one of the Mrs. Walters plays the ace of danger, and that hits all of the other witches with lightning, but skips over Amari. And Amari's like, oh, that's weird. And they're like, oh, we're not surprised. We saw your video. You can control lightning. And they ask what else she can do, and she says, I don't even know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't even know. And that is where chapter 4 is.
Yeah, there's mystery afoot.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. While MeUndies can't totally help your love life this Valentine's Day, they can offer you insanely comfy undies and loungewear to buy or gift. MeUndies has so many awesome Valentine's Day prints and styles. Plus, you can match with your partner, friends, or even your pets. This Valentine's Day, give the gift that'll keep them thinking of you and score huge site-wide savings at MeUndies.com/Spotify. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify. MeUndies. Comfort from the outside in.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/BlackNerdsCreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves!
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever. But yeah, so then chapter 5, the Mrs. Walters, they dip. They got their car pulls up. They pick up their game and homegrown the jar, and they are out.
That's what I'm saying.
I have another question too,
It doesn't
though. It's like,
explain if she pops up because it says the four of them, but it doesn't say if she popped back up as her.
or she's still in the
No,
jar.
I think
or
she's
she's
still.
still
In,
in
I
the
think
jar.
she's still in the jar.
It hasn't been an hour yet. Damn.
I mean, I guess it makes her more transportable.
Maybe they were like, you go stay in this jar while we take this Uber because they charge you once you hit a certain number of people.
Maybe. And I mean, if her hour's not up.
Yeah, her hour's not up. So my question though is that like, where exactly are they going? Because I mean, they're gonna get out of the city.
That's on a need to know basis, Robyn.
But
it's on a need to know basis.
Well, no. What I'm saying, what I'm thinking is, the magical. Is it the magical Congress that is like there's
Supernatural
a magical
World
or the
Congress.
Supernatural World Congress,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming is kind of like the UN. Is there like a governing body in Atlanta, Georgia, and so they're going to go to like Maryland and not be
Bureau?
World Congress.
Exactly. So I'm like, where are they going that they're not?
They're going to go to the underground where the Sasquatches are having their
hideaways. What the
and
Sasquatch is up to.
Okay.
They probably got them a new lair, you know, prime real estate.
Because they're like, we're out of the city, but I'm like, and it's not like the magical, the supernatural mayor.
She's not telling Amari like, okay, so if you don't want to find us, because why would you? No,
right. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the idea of like leaving is confusing to me because of like, what is the jurisdiction of Bane?
But I also think that like it's still early. Like they can tell that something has happened.
They're just making
Bane
themselves
is in
scarce.
charge, most likely. So they're what's the word? They're getting ahead of it. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, but I mean, I guess it's to me, it's like
it's easier if they were to wait for Bane to gain all control and be sending, you know, folks after they have record of where Mrs. Walters lives, right?
So you're like, they're just getting off the grid,
right?
They're just dumping this fake ID
before they even start their investigation and start trying to look for people and rounding folks up. They're like,
I don't know if they're dropping the ID yet, but they probably they only got the one, so they probably can't afford to go to another one. So they probably are just like, if Miss Walters ever shows up on the radar, she won't be there where they're looking to find her.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the only question I have about governance in this world, but it'll do for now.
I mean, yeah. So based on what, you know, she's heard from the tea that she's gotten, she's still trying to like figure out how this can apply into like how she can get back into the Bureau. And primarily to see Quentin. Like that's still a concern for her, right? Quentin was in Australia for a minute. They're trying to like break the curse that has him in a coma. But he's back in Atlanta now, and so that's really the only way that she can see him is if she goes to the Bureau, because that's where he's being cared for. But she gets home and her mom is making gumbo, spicy gumbo.
This is strange to me as someone who loves gumbo with my entire heart and soul. There's a level of spice that is important, but they be talking about peppers and stuff.
Not everyone has the same recipes.
No, I understand, but I'm saying like they would talk about the gumbo as if it was like chili, and I really want to try it because I'm like, what is spicy gumbo? Like maybe it's the sausages that they use?
It sounded more like
heat,
mom.
like spice.
Yeah, it sounded to me like Mama Peter's recipe. She just be throwing all the spice in it. Not necessarily that it's different from like gumbo, just her personal recipe. She be trying to burn the tongue off.
She makes it hot.
Okay.
Yeah. And Amari is kind of like, so you know, it's not just me and you eating this, right? Like Elsie's coming over.
I love how Amari kind of like says
the thing without saying the thing.
Yeah, she's like, I know her.
I don't think she's grown up in a household where
adopted.
Right.
She's not grown up in a household where she's had a regular interaction with spice.
Right. Even though she may breathe fire, but
yeah,
I don't know if we want to do that in the house.
Right.
But yeah, but they, you know, they joke a little bit about it and move on. Elsie shows up in the teleport. These people just be teleporting into places. They're like,
Stop teleporting into my living room, though.
come
Teleport
on, it to the
onto
front
the
door.
door.
Although
But
I
she's
guess you can't
Elsie.
really do that because it's
Public and
yeah. And it seems like Mama Peters is used to it. Like she doesn't even, all she does is like, come give me a hug. She gives, you know, she has the
That's what I'm saying. I
big
think it's because it's
auntie.
Elsie.
because it's Elsie.
Yeah, because it's Elsie.
Yes.
I think she's just like, and at
She's-
this point, it's probably happened before.
Mhm.
It's been a year since they've been friends. You know what I mean? So like, I think at this point she's used to it, and she's just like, come give me a hug. She's like, I gotta pop off to the store real quick, and then we can eat.
I love that she says, I'm going to pop off to the store right whenever she can tell there's like an awkward tension around the discussion.
Because she notices that Elsie has on like an Oxford shirt. And she's like, oh, look at you, like thinking about college. And Elsie's like, well, I actually got in. And so
yeah, it's not that far off. It's more like in the next couple of months as opposed to the next couple of years.
And so she kind of peeps that there's a little bit of tension there. And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna head off. There's also like Amari kind of reflects a little bit, I think, before Elsie gets there about the kind of difference in her relationship with her mom now. In the last book, she was like, her mom was busy all the time. She was always out. They're both like dealing with their grief about Quentin's disappearance. And most people telling them that he's dead at this point, and like all of this going on. And then she goes to summer camp and she's just not really in communication with her, right? Whereas like now they know Quentin's alive. Moms knows more about the supernatural world. They're able to, like, they just, you know, the relationship is a lot lighter. They're able to kind of get back a little bit to like how things were before, even though, you know, there's still some things. Amari's not telling her about being kicked out of the bureau, but partially because she thinks that she can figure it out before she needs to tell her. She's like, I want to try some things first before I like break it to her. But yeah, they're just in a better place, which is nice. And her mom got a promotion, so like her work schedule is different, is like not as demanding as it was before.
Yeah. Two things about this. One thing is that I love that universal mom got a promotion, so she gets more and does less.
I know.
Just capitalism and anyway. I also think about like just how important it is for the adults in your life to like know about the supernatural, or for Mama Peters to know about the supernatural world, because it's not even just like, oh, I mean, yes, their relationship is lighter, but there's like she's not, I feel like when you are trying to keep secrets from people, you just inevitably stop sharing everything, whether or not it's attached to the secret or not, just because it's like, I don't want to open myself up and possibly slip, or you know what I mean? And so like, as a parental and child relationship, that's very dangerous. And so it's something I hated, especially because like they knew they knew more about what happened to Quentin, and just let his family just rot in unknowing for way too long. But like, it just causes a lot of damage, and so it's nice to see that like repair. And a lot of that too is because Amari gets to be like her full self at home again.
So yeah, so mom dips, and Amari and Elsie kind of discuss Oxford more. Amari asks, is like, so you made your decision that you're going? And Elsie's like, my mom pretty much decided. She's transferred her job and rented an apartment. And okay, this is my main thing. Elsie just found out she got in how many hours ago? Like, it's not like she found out
3-4
2 weeks ago. It's not like she just found out 2 months. She knew 2 months ago that she was going to Oxford, and her mom has been in the process. Her mom said, oh, you're in Oxford. Okay, we need to meet with your teachers immediately on the last day of school. And then I'm going to put in a transfer at work and I'm going to rent an apartment that we're not even going to move into until August because you're still going to go to summer camp in Atlanta. So it's
I'm
just like,
wondering, so Elsie didn't tell Amari because she wasn't trying to like jinx it or didn't really believe that it was like a thing, but I'm wondering like how much advance notice her mom had and
I mean, I think that
what kind
you're
of
muted, Porshèa.
string she pulled maybe.
Or like advanced preparation that she did, like in it, like she was like, if she really wanted the London thing to happen, she was like, well, let me just go on and line up things. Let me look at, like, she was, while the application was being sent in, she was looking up apartments.
Right. Maybe just like, and for
I
me,
mean,
it's not even, for me, it's not even if she had that lead time and was just like, you know, I know my daughter's brilliant, so she's going to get in Oxford and doing that. My point is like, you still have a couple months. Like, it didn't need to all happen today.
That's what
Yeah.
I was
And
saying
also
when I
it
said
feels
that
like
it depends on if she has social ambitions for her daughter to be part of those circles that she knows that
Mhm.
are there in London, because she is rich and she knows about the different social circles or whatever.
And I
the
think
different
that's what
bureaus.
it gives. It gives like this ambition and like this pushing of Elsie to be a certain kind of person. And like at this point, Elsie's lucky in the sense of like the stuff that her mom is pushing her to do is stuff that she was going to do anyway, right? Like she is brilliant and she's going to make inventions. She pulled up to the Peter's house with a giant bag of her latest invention just in case she gets inspiration in the, you know what I mean? So like it's, but at the same time, I just feel like, you know, we haven't met Elsie's mom in person yet, but like everything we hear about her is like not great. Not a good impression. And so it
Very like calculating.
very calculating, very, like you said, ambitious, which isn't always bad. Like being ambitious is not a bad thing, but when you are doing that like through your kid, um and then we also already know that she's not like the biggest fan of Amari because she's a magician. And so it's, you know, when in the last book when all of those like families were attacked by the hybrids or whatever, and Elsie's mom found out that she was at Amari's house, she was like, no, you gotta leave now, you can't be here. Even like it also feels like the pushing for her to go again, like we were talking about, Robyn was like, well, what about coming back to her friends? Her mom doesn't like Amari, so she doesn't think that Elsie needs to come back to hang out with Amari, and Elsie doesn't really have other friends here, you know what I mean?
Even if it
So
was on like the borough heads and chiefs or whatever that she's like been working under, that she's made those like good relationships with, that doesn't, she's like, she can go to London and do the same thing. They're more prestigious over in London anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely get the sense of like her mom using this as a way to exacerbate like space between her and Amari, and like was probably hoping like, oh, you know, she's an inventor, or like they'll start school and she'll, you know, they'll slowly kind of, their friendship will, you know, slowly fade or something like that, or with every like anti-magician sentiment thing, like Elsie might see the light. And that hasn't happened all year, and they seem to have only gotten closer.
And I think too, like Amari, you know, in quotes, proved that she's a good magician or whatever. So I'm sure that she was a lot more quiet
slightly
about
more
her
tolerant.
reservations, right? Like a little more tolerant, not really saying anything, letting their driver drive Amari home, letting them hang out, letting them do all this stuff. And now the time freeze happened. Like she almost didn't want Elsie to come to dinner, even though they had already planned to do that, right? It took Elsie's grandmother to be like, no, she should get to do this because they're not going to be able to hang out anymore for a long time, like for a while after when she goes to school. Like it's just, her mom definitely buys into that like prejudice against magicians, and I'm sure there's some like, you know, Mari's not a rich and wealthy kid from like a rich family. She's, you know, there's like this social capital that she doesn't have, and so I think that
like if she was, if Elsie was best friends with Maria, would it be this
Or
difficult?
Lara, technically, because Maria's
Yeah,
old.
Lara.
Well, but
yes.
but Maria's a magician, so that would be a better.
But that's what I'm saying. But Maria
Oh,
is a
that's what
Van
you're saying.
Helsing as well.
So then Dylan.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, or
Dylan
Dylan,
hadn't
yeah.
done, you know. If
Yeah,
we
it
knew
would
he
be
was a magician,
interesting.
but he hadn't have like
if he
tried
was a
to
good
kill
magician with
people.
the right name, would
Right.
she have the same tight leash on Elsie's
on
friendship?
Elsie.
And
Yeah.
also, we're not gonna like not to leave the race out of it because
Right.
like Elsie's
Yeah.
mom is not a woman of color, as far as we know. Even women of color can be anti-black. So
Mhm.
even Black women can be anti-black, which is a problem.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there's also like, I don't know. My thought was that like the social capital that if Elsie's mom is a social climber and is interested in social capital, most in like pushing her daughter forward, then I also want to note that she probably has like weighed what social capital Amari has. And the only thing she really had going for her in the bureau or whatever prior to her like showcasing that she was a good magician, is that she is the sister of Quentin. And Quentin is like, like I feel like older people look at people who are younger who build like a splashy career or whatever as like, oh, they're just like a fad, or they're like trendy for the moment, or they're like, like a flash in the pan or whatever. And I could see her mother being like, even the things that Amari has in her corner are not even that impressive or whatever in comparison to my daughter who does all the, you know what I mean? She's like one of those. It seems like she has that kind of vibe.
And like her parents are, I don't know if academics are the right word, but they're prestigious like dragon. That's how they ended up adopting Elsie in the first place. So they also have their own like social capital cachet type of thing that they're trying to maintain as well. So she's a difficult woman.
And we didn't even met this lady yet, and we're already pulling all these conclusions
That's the thing.
together.
That's the part, is like we haven't actually met her yet. But everything that we have learned about her is not cool. And also, it's just interesting that like Elsie hasn't bought into that stuff. But I think also Elsie is not, I think that's also part of it. Like Elsie has not been able to build that like kind of social capital the way that her mom, I think, you know what I mean? Like the way that her mom would necessarily
She's been like pushed out from that. Like Lara has been her bully. Like that has been, yeah. But I also think there's a thing about like, it's just like when kids aren't picking up what their parents are putting down all the way, part of it I think is also like if they're not actively just being like, if they're not also being rebellious, is sometimes like people, you want to see the best in your people around you, especially your parents. And I can see that be a thing for Elsie, where she's only reading the better parts of her mother and not necessarily holding too close to heart the things that she doesn't agree with her mother right now,
or that she chalks it up to overprotectiveness.
Yeah, like being worried. Yeah, but I think that's her painting it in a better light of like, she's worried. She really cares about me. She's concerned. That's a nice sentiment to put behind it, instead of actually trying to interrogate if this is coming from a worse place.
Right. Yeah. And it's possible that like, I mean, who knows? Because I don't know like what is coming in the next book and like whether that's something that's gonna be addressed or like, a central part of the book. But that can also be something that like comes with age, like as you get older, you're just starting to like realize like, oh, that's like, it could be that doesn't make me feel good right now, and you don't really know why, or like not completely able to interrogate it. And also that's your mom, so you're trying to like you said, like think the best of the situation. And as you get older, you just start to like.
But also sometimes you start to learn stuff. Like sometimes people will not tell you stuff, and it's only whenever you get older you get access to more information.
Right, you just get more
them
context.
Being the gatekeeper, and then you're like, whoa, oh.
Right.
Okay.
It just kind of unlocks more context.
You know what I just
feelings that you were having.
I just thought about There is a prestige in a way of Elsie being the last were-dragon or known were-dragon, but there's also a safety in the fact that she hasn't shifted. Like,
also that she's not connected to any of her people because
yeah,
she, for all intents and purposes, is the last one. So she doesn't have a culture that they can like be like holding her up to, or like
yeah,
she
she's like
can feel disconnected from, and she can actively voice to her mother that she feels disconnected from or whatever.
I was thinking about how the reason Amari and Elsie roomed together in the first place was because Laura got all of these people and parents scared about possibly rooming with a were-dragon. And so I'm also wondering that after, because, you know, spoiler alert, she does complete a full shift, like, if her mom is going to even treat her more as, like, a threat or differently, because it's one thing, you know, like, people, like, it's going to sound awful, but yeah, when they adopt children from third world countries or the, you know, the bad side of town or whatever, and they have this sense of like you said, Porshèa, like this like sense of I did good and I saved this child, but as soon as that child like does connect to like their culture and where they're actually from, all of those negative stereotypes, it's no longer like, oh, I saved them. It's like, what did I bring into my home type of thing.
There's also a sense of like how they should be grateful for
yes
that.
And you show your gratefulness by assimilation
and obey.
Yeah, that's assimilation too, though, right? Like you're obeying that the dominant culture is the correct culture, so let's all get in a line and all assimilate. Let's do that.
Yeah, so I'm interested too to see if we see more of her mother in the upcoming books, but also like if that relationship changes.
Yeah, just what that dynamic is.
Transracial adoptees.
I don't read fanfic, but I don't know what it is. I think is it in this book? Did I just make this up in my head after reading it one day? I don't know. You tell me. For whatever reason, something told me in my brain that we're gonna find out that Elsie's not the last one, and that she may have relatives alive.
I think so.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know that I think so, but I hope so.
It's giving Doctor Who.
Let's do it. Pull him through the time vortex. Let's go.
I do not get that reference.
It's fine. It's what's it called? Doctor Who, when like the new Who, when it comes back, he's like the last Time Lord. But then like every few seasons there's a moment where other Time Lords pop up for whatever reason and he has to defeat them. So it's kind of funny because it's like,
but you're
like they're gone, and I'm so angsty about the fact that like they're gone, and then every time they try to come back, he's like, "Ooh, y'all don't actually need to be here.
Y'all suck."
I just like to have that as part of my tragic backstory. Right. I don't like to actually
back it up.
Yeah.
In my life.
Yeah.
So Time Lords in theory are way better than Time Lords in reality.
In real, yeah.
Or paradoxical reality or whatever the hell they be doing. They be messing.
It's always some weird, like convoluted way that they come back. But anyway, that was, yeah.
Well, thank you for the breakdown because actually, I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good. Okay, I get it. All right.
cross nerd connection. Exchange, cultural exchange. So as Amari and Elsie are like discussing, Elsie gets an emergency alert on her phone that there will be an announcement. So it says something like, you know, please make sure you're in a quiet place alone, which is like, I think a weird thing for it to say out loud. Like say you were in public, like on the bus or something, and it's like, please make sure you're in a quiet place. Like,
like now everybody's gonna come look at my phone,
right? Versus being like, versus it just like saying it on the thing, and you can just like slip headphones in or whatever. But also, you know, because Amari has been blocked from the other net, this is the only way she would find out this information, is that Elsie is here and they can look at it on her phone, because Amari's not getting this alert on her phone. So again, they're just like, you're done, putting you in the dark, but not explaining why or how or, you know, what next steps are. So we find out that the time freeze, everybody knows about the brief time freeze that happened. But what they don't know until now is that the entire Supernatural World Congress is still frozen. So it kind of like pans to them and they're all just like, there's like folks hanging from the I love that, like, because it's y'all are hilarious. I love that. Oh my gosh. For I guess this is a podcast.
It's a podcast.
They both
we froze.
They both froze. But okay, because this is a supernatural world, right? You got creatures hanging from the ceiling, you got folks in mid-flight, you got like folks sitting down, you got all this kind of stuff happening, right? But they're all frozen, including Merlin, who's standing at the podium and is just there.
Looks to be in shock. But there's the other thing too of like, and I believe we get to like kind of rewind and see this way later on in the book, but it feels like they freeze, but they know
something is happening.
Yeah, they're like
they're aware. Like, the Congress.
They saw what was happening.
Why are you in flight mid congressional?
Right.
Yeah.
I was about to say congressional Congress mid meeting.
But also, like, he's at the podium, so he's speaking. So why would you be flying while someone else is talking? You know,
You're
just
like,
it's because
unless they're just like hovering. Maybe that's just there's not enough seats.
They're like, this is my workout. Instead of having,
because
like,
they're definitely folks hanging from the ceiling too, like a bat or like a spider.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's what they are, but just like they're
the vampire that like they're just
right. Just like I'm listening. So it definitely looks like they. Even if they didn't all see, at least a few of them saw something was happening, but then, didn't have time to prevent it. So then it cuts to Bane, who again, he looks like he's in black and white. Because he's kind of been pulled, because he's a wraith. So he explains that this has happened because the supernatural world has grown tolerant. And he kind of like spits, it's all in italics. He's like, we've grown tolerant. I'm like, okay. So this is the kind of person that we're about to deal with. That's like how
this is one of those like one of those speeches where you're like, oh, so you're not even trying to dog the soul. You just
you're saying it. Okay. I also want to say that this chapter made me realize that this year on Wizard Team is going to be a year of rage because we're dealing with these people in this book, and then we gotta go to Bloodmarked with more just like terrible people. And just so that you're all aware, I mean, I'm assuming since this is a spoiler heavy podcast that you know this, but just to like process, there's gonna be a lot of anger. Because
Bane is the baddie.
Bane is
he's also like Bane is the bane of our existence, like of the supernatural world's existence.
And it's also like
oh, go ahead.
So this thing is he's blaming magicians and this is the first time we've heard this term. They call them unwanteds. Which how are you just gonna call somebody to their face unwanted?
Like, how about you're unwanted, Bane? Nobody wants you to be the leader. You're the unwanted here.
Come on, like, how did you even? Why are you here?
Merlin is the prime minister, not you. You're unwanted to fulfill this position. How about that?
So he says, we must never forget the unwanted's crimes. So unwanteds are folks
we'll
get they explain it later. Okay, cool. Yeah. I couldn't remember if it was in this chapter. So he says we must never forget the unwanted's crimes, and we should never forgive. First of all, it's been 700 years. So, yes, it was a terrible thing that happened to you. You should not have been turned into a wraith. That was horrible. The Night Brothers should have paid for their crimes, and they did. They're both dead. So at this point, you need to move on, and you need to get over it, and you need to learn, you have you're not the only wraith in this world, so find your little wraith community and figure out how you're going to move through the world.
Group
and for
therapy,
the sake
PTSD, something.
Like, find the different things that you can do.
For the sake of the people who are going to try to play devil's advocate here, let me stop you, okay, real quick. Because I feel like people are going to be like, well, is this not similar to African Americans and how they talk about reparations? And let's talk about that. Okay. So the perpetrators of chattel slavery in the United States, just because that's the one that I can speak about. I know there's other contexts, the Caribbean and Africa continue to have to this day, so it's colonization.
France still gets money
France
for colonizers. All of their colonized countries pay them for colonizing them.
Look, let's talk about Belgium. Let's talk about rubber and what King Leopold. But okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna keep it to the U.S. context as we're here. Y'all like to play this whole that was so long ago for that, and we're talking about how it's been so long ago for Bane and his wraithness. Here's the thing, though: the people who perpetrated that against him, they gone.
And they're not in charge. They've been also suffering the consequences of that. The people who were there, but the people who were descended from them and who have that magic, they've been perpetrated since then the whole time. None of them have been in charge. None of them have been
none of them have
had power, systemic power.
They have been second-class citizens that whole time. They're meeting. We're gonna get to the next chapter.
Still happened,
they're all meeting in secret.
Times as long ago as chattel slavery, 700 years.
Who?
If it was 700 years ago, it's about 3 times, a little bit less than 3. We're about 250, 254, 260 out of American chattel slavery. It was 260 years ago.
Yeah.
So 700 years is,
I'm not even counting. So I'm not even going to do calculus on that because the main issue with chattel slavery in the United States context is that those people have stayed in power. Right. They are Brooks Brothers. They are banking institutions. They are families who continue to carry a lot of wealth or even mid-upper wealth and never paid people for their labor. And so those same people are out here looking for having to deal with assistance and being looked down upon and being societally pushed down from being able to to ascend to get to a place where they can actually maintain a level of power, and then talked about as if, well, just pull your boots up, pull your bootstraps or whatever. And we're continuing to carry a shame that does not belong to us. The shame belongs to the perpetrators, and the perpetrators are still in power. Like Bayana was saying, in this world, the people who hold the power were the people who were victimized.
So we're led to believe.
So
it's like you're the deputy minister. You're the deputy prime minister of the supernatural world of
You've
Congress.
Been around
and you have
since
not
the actual war. You've not died. Nothing. You know what I mean?
You've done this around. For this. You've been around, and you can't move on. You can't find some other meaning in life.
Or a different way to better to specify the kind of justice that you're looking for. For you, justice is to oppress. That's justice.
Right. I just feel like we must never forget the unwanted crimes, and we should never forgive is screaming revenge and unhealthiness. Iyama,
and it's most of these people were not around,
right? Because who are you not
during
forgiving?
The Night Brothers War?
Don't forgive those a-holes. You're right.
Don't
forgive them. Don't forget the Night Brothers.
You don't have to forgive them, but guess what? They're dead. It's the complete opposite of when people are talking about oh, why are we being punished? I never owned slaves. It's no, and no one's blaming you for slavery. They are just saying acknowledging that
benefit from it.
You're benefiting from it. And like Porshèa said, there are people who are directly benefiting from it who we can trace the benefits from, who need to be giving some of those benefits back to the people who actually created that wealth.
Also note, there are people who have obscured how involved they are, and it's only after time goes on that we gain access, or someone does the right thing and actually pulls up their family papers sitting somewhere in an attic and shares them out so people can understand who was responsible for what. Because y'all like to sit on things and talk about to each other how y'all once was wealthy, but y'all don't want to actually pull out the paperwork to show how that wealth happened. So that's also a thing. I want to talk about. It's not only the people that we know did it. We also know people who were part of it, but they're not showing their work. And we know that exists too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All
so
of this, though,
he does all of this, and then he says, "I'm prime minister." He doesn't even say like acting prime minister. He's just like, "I'm prime minister now,"
or interim.
Yeah. And then he promises that he will persecute all unwanteds. And my thing is like, you didn't say, "I promise we'll figure out how to unfreeze the supernatural Congress." You didn't say
we'll promise to get to the bottom of who actually
did this. No, he's like, all magicians and unwanted.
I just said the unwanteds did it.
They gotta go.
He doesn't even like, this is the part where I'm not confused, but I have questions about how this government is run. Because
can you say the last line though? Because that's the one that got me. That's where I was like, this guy gotta go.
But it's like, not only are you like, how do you just proclaim yourself prime minister? And like the way he said it with so much like just finality, like no one was gonna have a problem with this.
Who's gonna stop? Who is empowered to?
Who's gonna check me?
Exactly. Who's empowered to stop him? Because the whole world Congress is frozen. So who has the power? Who?
But it's not even the power thing though, because like I feel like even in our crappy society at this point, like there is still a level of, we have to go through the motions or say the right things because the wider public would be like, the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, even if we don't have protests, like, institutional power,
for several months, and they have still kept the same lines to the public. They still have said the same rhetoric, but twisted it a little bit here and there to the public.
Right, but like,
and this isn't even a space where, like, you know, unlike in the real world where, again, there have been lots of protests and calls to Congress and, you know, calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, where it's very obvious that they are going against like public will. In this way, like in this fictional place, right? That's not really been shown.
Obvious. Yeah.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying is like, what is the wider?
It feels like not everyone
would even have like you would think like, so he's gonna do this speech or whatever, and Amari goes onto the other net pretty quickly afterwards, and you'd think she'd come across some like, we ride at dawn, we're going to, like, yeah, we've had protests in this world and they haven't been as effective in changing power structures or anything, but we do make noise. That's where I'm like, what's going on in this world where we're not seeing any noise?
But I think we've seen, like, we watched, I mean, we read Amari and the Night Brothers, and the way that Amari was treated, it's not like folks are like progressive in their thoughts about magicians, and they may not be as like just like straightforward like as Bane, right? They may not be harboring a 700-year I mean, they are, but like, I mean, a personal 700-year grudge, right? They may not be harboring that, but they believe everything that he's saying. They've been kind of like letting it slide because Amari's a quote good magician or whatever, and they're like, it's fine. But even then, she mentions that like when she looks up the word that I'm going ahead a little bit, but like people have said this to her in her comments and she just didn't know what it meant and just moved on. But like,
yeah, but
I think the point is that like they all believe this thing, and also she doesn't have a lot of time to like look through to see what people are saying about it.
He's also probably empowered to say what he's saying because he's seen how people have responded to even Amari in the past year. So he knows that the majority of like Amari's this is me going back into like my day job gig. So audience breakdown. So if I'm going to do a basic one. So it's like opposition, moderate, and base. And the base that is with Amari. The people who are just like open to hearing her out and whatever, and are more like tolerant people, they're gonna be with Amari no matter what. The moderates are gonna be the ones that you're trying to sway to go to Amari's side, and then opposition are the ones who are, no matter what's gonna happen, they're gonna be anti-magicians, anti-Amari, whatever. What Bane is picking up is that opposition is still larger in number on his side than it is on the side that the base that Amari's been able to pull together. So
And I
even
think
in
the
trying
other
to sway
thing,
those moderates, it's like they're gonna stand wherever who's in power unless they feel strongly convicted one way or another. And he's showing that like this is what I'm doing right now. So get in, like, come over here.
and he's saying, again, he uses the word tolerant, right? Which doesn't mean that you like very explicitly and actively
Are
support someone.
pro.
It just means
Yeah.
that you are allowing these folks to exist and move in the ways that they can. And even then, like, it's not like you're, again, you're not actively supporting or
No.
supporting them, right? And so that's who
And tolerant
he's
and
targeting
tolerant also
in this
likes to
moment.
just like a limitation. Like there's a
Right.
limit that you put to your tolerance
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right. And I think
Well,
that this
and
is what he's
I
doing
think-
is he's appealing to those moderates who, in his opinion and in his rhetoric, are saying that you've grown tolerant, right? Like, don't forget what these magicians have done to us. Don't forget, like, all of these things. We're about to prosecute them. You know what I mean? Or persecute them.
I think my thing in general, like, I agree with all of that, and I'm not surprised by any of that. My thing is that, like, okay, so there becomes sometimes when things are moving, switching politically, pendulums are swinging, in which you can go so far that, like, the left and the right can agree on, like, the overreach, you know what I mean? And so for me, it's more of the, like, it's more of the, like, proclaiming yourself prime minister, proclaiming all of these things, and, like,
but the
being
supernatural world
so,
Congress has been frozen, so I think that that's also, you know what I mean? Like, it's an
yeah. So
extreme
what
situation,
what
and
it feels
who
like
else
to
is going
me
to be
is,
prime
like,
minister, right? Everybody else who could be is frozen in the room.
yeah, what it feels like to me is that, like, after post 9/11, when we got, like, the Patriot Act, like, pushed through, like, they're just pushing all the stuff through while people are in fear, and then, like, 3-4 months later, a year later, people are gonna be like, what the hell did we allow to happen, once they start to, like, the shock and stuff kind of wears off. And so then I just, again, I'm not shocked, as in, like, this is very believable. I'm just more like, I'm reading it like, what is the normal governmental structure of the supernatural
Like, how would
world?
this usually
Are you thinking about like their actual like succession plan? Like, is he operating
Like, in
within the
general,
lines of
because, like,
succession?
one, like, I'm looking at Bayana Davis, sir, it's been 700 years. Why is Merlin and Bane, why are they still in power like, has this just been for 700 years? This has been the prime minister and deputy prime minister, and people just, we don't
There's
have
no election.
elections. We
Yeah.
don't, and so people are just
I
take that
mean,
for
we don't know.
granted.
We do not know what their
We have no
process
idea.
is. Yeah.
And that's where, that's all I was saying, was like,
Mm.
this whole scene just makes me want to be like, how does this work?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my brain, the vice president shows me that the Congress and the House, like, you know, the, like, designated survivor thing. Basically, the designated survivor comes on after the State of the Union. Like, the whole everybody in the State of the Union, everybody in Congress is frozen. And so I'm president now. There's this, and this. I'd be like, okay, what are we doing to unfreeze them? And also, when that happens, there's been all of these writings and things about when we set up elections. Like, the designated survivor's job basically is, like, make sure we're safe, and then, like, get these elections going. You know what I mean? So, like, there's like a civic kind of understanding that
of how the process is supposed to go, or
how the
in
process is supposed to work.
Yeah,
but that's in the United States democratic system.
and I would
like,
also say
quote,
we have
like,
asked lots of questions about how even the bureau works.
yeah,
So
like what is even
there's
happening?
yeah.
So it just brings that up to me again, once again, being like, what is happening?
Yeah, I'll read this last point since Porshèa mentioned, but then we should move on because we've been on for a minute. So he says, or he lifts a hand in front of his face and balls it into a tight fist. From this point forward, a crime committed by one unwanted is a crime committed by all. A reckoning is coming.
And to me, that is terrifying. If I'm Van Helsing, I'm shaking in my boots because, both of my children are unwanted. What does that mean about me?
I think that he thinks that he's
above. They're the Van Helsings. They're above everyone.
No, I think he is going to continue to persecute Amari to keep the attention off of him.
They're above everyone
and his folk.
Mm-hmm. They're above everyone.
He's doing a don't look over here.
Look over there. Above everyone.
So,
which means they can throw everyone else under the bus.
Yeah. That one Yeti that works at the bureau doing his best, pushing paperwork, is like, I got out of the family business. Why am I back in?
Just when he's
that's when I thought I was out.
He's having a Nick. He's having a Nick moment. He's having a Nick moment. So I wanted you to speak that line because that one was really risen. I was like, he really is doing like capital crimes, tyranny right here, and then it just like for me it set up McCarthyism and how ablaze it is in the supernatural world, and then what solidifies that is that when in the chapter 6, one of the first things that Amari does after this whole thing, because first off, she like Elsie's mom is blowing up her phone, so we already know that's about to happen when over there. And so, but she is left with Elsie's laptop in the meantime, and so she looks up the term unwanted, as Bayana said. She had seen it in her comments sometimes, but she didn't know that there was an extra connotation to it. So now she's like, oh crap, now I gotta go look up this word. And it is slang, derogatory, name used for magicians and other supernaturals who fought on the Night Brothers' side in the ancient war. Made popular by Abraham Van Helsing. How is that not surprising? In 1315, during his campaign to exclude anyone associated with the magicians from supernatural society.
Leslie Graham.
Particularly those beings created by magicians such as hybrids and boogie people.
I'm just like, bro, you're literally a magician.
Yeah. Yep.
Was he the magician?
Yeah, he was the magician. He's one of the apprentices.
He defeated Vladimir because he was a magician.
As he's doing all of this, in the shadows, he's training his next family member to be a hidden magician. Like, that's...
I knew about the uncle, but I didn't know who was the one. I can't remember.
It was Abraham.
It was Abraham.
That is... ain't that about a white man? Ain't that about
a politician?
Ain't that about a white man, though, specifically. And at 1315s, especially?
A white man, a white politician. That's why I said Skiven Lindsey Graham, which I probably shouldn't say, but I did.
I mean, so, like, it's just, one of the things that, like, occurred to me as we were reading these few chapters has been, once again, Amari's been put in a place where she feels like she has to prove herself, and she's like 13. And the way she thinks she needs to prove herself is by like solving the mystery of who did the time freeze. But like even the people in charge are so up their own butts about bigotry that they are not even seeming to prioritize. Like the one thing you should reassure the people with is that we're investigating. He didn't even give us that. So now here's this 13-year-old girl who's feeling that way because she feels like she's personally going to be victimized and has been. She has been victimized because the people they think presume her to be guilty by association of her craft. But also now she's like, I really got to figure this out because
that's the only way they're gonna let me back in the bureau.
But it's not even like
like,
to me,
like
the worst part is it's not even. I got to figure out who perpetrated the time freeze. It's I have to prove a magician did not do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a magician did do it, doesn't matter if it was me or not me. I'm screwed.
It's still exactly.
But it's like what's even worse is that it's like since he's named unwanted, it could be anyone it could be a non-magician too. It doesn't matter if they're an unwanted, it comes for them all. And I just think that is just super frustrating. I also wanted to note that oh, we missed this, but I just wanted to note my small love for Elsie. I feel like she must have a whiteboard budget, and I just want to know what her whiteboard budget is because it's probably hilarious.
I need somebody who needs a new whiteboard. I love this.
I also, you know what I also love though is that like Amari was like, isn't it not smart for you to just be ignoring your mom's phone calls? And she's like, not only am I ignoring my mom's phone calls, but I'm about to use her card, her Hermes account to get a whiteboard and get it sent to your house. She gonna see it.
Yep, she's gonna know. And she can't really. If she's gonna ground me, it can only be for tonight. So
right. She's like I know the bounds and limitations of my day, of my grounding, and it has nothing to do with me. I am not.
I will also say, I do also like we talked about Amari having to now do this like investigation. I will say, one, she's doing it with the assumption that she's somehow gonna have access to, or that she's gonna be back in the bureau to do this investigation, which we know that she will be back, but like, okay, how? But that's what the whiteboard's for. I also love that that Elsie's like, "Are you sure that's what we want to do?" And Amari's like, "Yeah." She's like, "All right, let's go."
Yep,
let's do it.
And I was just like, whiteboard. I'm like, this is hilarious to me. I'm like, we have no idea how you're gonna like you're fully committing to an investigation with no way of figuring out how you're gonna actually get access to materials, but cool.
That's on the whiteboard.
It's you know what
in the process.
They didn't even do steps. They would go straight to possible suspects, and sadly, they're like it's suspects, but it's like people they got to prove didn't do it. The like magician list, the known magician list, and so they're going through the list, and it is super sad that initially, like the first like thing that Amari has to do is disabuse Elsie of the concept that there's just one, like these are the only known magicians in the world. Like she's like,
right,
it's a secret society.
She's like, it can't be you because you were with me. It can't be Maria because she's doing teacher training and she's super nice, and it can't be Dylan because he's locked in the depths of prison.
And Amari's like, but there's more. There's what if
Amari's like, so
there's more. There's more of us.
So sorry.
There's a few more of us. And Elsie's like, what? And
she said hundreds.
Yeah. Like she was like, how many members are there? And then Amari's like, I don't know exactly how many, like a few hundred. And then Elsie's like, 100? Like what? So I know this is brushing up against all the things she's heard from her mama. Like I know this is just like her brain is not doing well with that. And Amari's like, here's the thing. They take being secret super seriously. There's no way they would do something that would bring attention to themselves, especially something as bold as freezing the leaders of the supernatural world. So even though Amari is like considering them and trying to like, you know, like showcase them like why they're not the fact, she's got to like hold in her brain if they could possibly be perpetrators, what would their motive be? And she's like, but they have a better motive to not do it than they do to do it. So I don't think this is actually worth, you know, pursuing too hard. But they decide that it's worth her reaching out with the card that she received from the magical order. And the instructions for it is that a magician may place this card against any mirror to reach the league steward. So I don't know if everyone recollects, but at the end of Amari and the Night Brothers, she goes to a bench in a park. She meets with this random man. So sad. She's like a child meeting with a random man in the park. Not the greatest like auspices of that, but He sits on the park bench with her, hands her a card. She reads it. This is what it says on the back, and then he explains that. But does he explain? No. He just says there's a secret society. We've all been looking forward to you. Boom, boom, bang. This is how you can contact us. And then he dips. And so that's all Amari knows. Like, she's literally telling Elsie everything she knows, and what she knows is so little. It can fit in the back of a card.
Didn't Maria gave her some background knowledge, but not much more than that either.
Just how like magical transference like works, like but like not a lot on like the members and all that stuff. We're going to get into Amari using this card, and I dislike what happens in our conversation with Cosmo when she uses the card. So she uses the card, she puts it against the mirror. She has Elsie stand out of the vantage point of the mirrors just in case, because she's not supposed to tell anyone else about this information.
Right. Elsie's like, what if it's FaceTime?
And when she places the card against the mirror, it ripples like water. And so both her and Elsie are like, ooh. And then so I appreciate that she is not as like gung-ho as some people are to just stick their body
Matthews, just say
into strange things.
Just say it. Just call her by her name.
But she does like kind of like touch it, and then she realizes that she kind of has to like go through it. So then she just like goes through it. But it basically is like she's like in water. She's in a body of water. She has to swim, and she's like going towards something in the distance. And then as she gets closer to it, she feels like she's like right when she's about to like lose her air, she makes it to the place. It's a house. And there at the front door is Cosmo. And Cosmo is like, I'm glad that you showed up because I was about to come after you tomorrow morning. And so you have great timing. And she was like, yeah. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. She's also like, why did... Oh, no, he said, why? He was impeccable timing. I was going to visit you in the morning. And then her first question, the first thing that she can say after all of that, like, deep swimming is, why did your card trying to drown me?
Right, because, like, imagine she didn't know how to swim.
Yeah. It pulls her in.
Not know how to swim?
She doesn't really, she's all of a sudden, she's just surrounded by water. She doesn't know where she is.
In a body of water.
There's a house in the distance, and it didn't tell her, hold your breath. It didn't tell her none of that.
Nothing. So Cosmo, this is why I'm pissed off about this. Cosmo's like, that's a security measure, I'm afraid. There's always this chance that a non-magician might find the card and try to use it. That's fine. That's cool. However, this is what he also says. Had you provided some proof of magic, the house would have sucked you right through the front door. Amari's like, proof of magic? And then he says, literally a spell of any kind. It's a real shame you haven't been taught our ways.
It's the same thing Robyn was talking about with the spades.
Now, how are you going to try to shame me for something? You gave me the card.
We losing recipes are being lost, and it's your fault. And you blaming us.
You are the one who sat on the bench with me, gave me the card, and neglected to tell me I should do a spell when I use it. That's on you, homie. And yet I'm the problem? I'm the problem? Oh, it's too bad I haven't... so
you're the steward. Aren't you the steward of magicians? You could have told me, hey, when you use this card... When you use this card, just make sure you
do a simple spell and put it against put it against the mirror. But also you should, I don't know, I would still be mad. I mean, I would be less mad if the house pulled me to it, so I wasn't in fear of drowning. I guess I'd be less mad, but I would still be upset that, like, I thought maybe I FaceTime you or whatever. Like, by the time she gets back to her house, like, Elsie done left. I don't know what happened to her mama, but like time is passing. Like, if you need me, use this card, do a simple spell, but also make sure that you have the time to travel. Because it takes her out to Scotland.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It does take her to Scotland.
And maybe, possibly, you don't have to, but I would just say, just to be safe, have your passport on you in case you can't get back by magical means.
Does she even have a passport?
Does she even have?
Imagine if she couldn't get back by magical means. She just in Loch Ness?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of. So yes. So he is like, well, what is done, I suppose. It's a wonder you made it through. Large, hungry things prowl these desks at night. So again, the security measure for this card for non-magicians is that you have to swim in a lake. But it's not just, oh, you're going for a swim, you should have picked up this card, you're a dum-dum. It is, oh, you have to contend with magical creatures who want to eat you.
No context at all.
And you wonder why magicians have a bad reputation, because they send people pick up errant cards and put them against mirrors.
Like,
and I think
imagine I found this card on the street and I just did what the card told me to because I'm curious. All of a sudden I'm dead.
And now I'm dead.
Like, why are we just assuming nefarious intent? Don't assume ill intent, my dude.
Yeah.
And if a random person who is not a magician has access to this card, that means a magician effed up. Because why is a magician being willy-nilly with the cards?
I mean, at the very least, you could, like, if a person didn't do the spell, it drops them off somewhere weird.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't work. How about that?
Right.
How about
if you can't perform a spell?
You can't perform a spell and you put it against the mirror,
you should be able to tell nothing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's this whole like scene or whatever with Cosmo. It's just a lot of him being like, "Oh, you didn't know that." It's like, why would you know that?
It's so frustrating.
And I think that like they did that at the bureau too. I feel like where they're just like, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't know," and it's like, who would have told her? She literally just found out about this,
right?
Yesterday.
And your whole thing is secrecy,
right?
Your whole thing is secret. So how is what? Okay, so that's what. Okay, so we also find out that Nessie is fond of eating magicians. So also Nessie is a human eater, apparently.
I reject
Put that where you want it.
Not Nessie. I reject it. Not my girl Nessie.
It's so sad. So Amari's like, where are we? And Cosmo, again, because like, why wouldn't you just know this? He's confused. My lake house, of course. Okay.
Sir.
All right.
I will say I do like that he has a lake house and it's under the lake.
In a lake.
That's clever.
In the lake. In Lake
in
Loch
the
Ness.
lake.
Like that is
exactly
the lake. Okay. That's the lake to put it in. I see you.
Mm-hmm. Prime real estate. I bet you that Sasquatch.
But you know, whoever
does
was
it come? Does the lake house come with?
Who he inherited that from? They was onto something. They was thinking.
Or the Sasquatch that sold it to him.
Yeah, they was.
Do you think the lake house comes with being the steward, or do you think Cosmo came for money and that's like his lake house?
I think it's his lake house.
Because my thing is, I might be weird for this. Is Cosmo a Scottish citizen? Is he Scottish?
I thought he was Italian.
His name is
like,
I mean, you could be Italian. You could be Italian and live in Scotland.
Yeah, like where does he?
Absolutely.
But if something happened with the magic, would he need a passport?
Why wouldn't he have a passport?
Magician.
When he just
I'm sure he has him. I'm sure he has one. But like,
listen, we have found out in the last, like, Dylan can still. You can get your magic taken. It could be yanked back or whatever, right?
But
like, there are magicians who can take your magic.
If you're a steward for a secret society, do you not just have like a lockbox of multiple different passports?
That's what I'm thinking. But like if you found me,
I'm sorry,
floating in a lake, and I said, "Oh, I got amnesia. I don't know how I ended up here." And then we figure out, like, "Oh, you were last seen in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know how you got in this lake in Scotland. And people be asking, where's your passport?
I
I'm
mean,
just trying to not be
anyone
on
knows that the house is
unsolved
in.
mysteries.
I don't think anyone knows that there's a house in Scotland, and I don't think it's actually a concern.
It should be though. The
But I
same
don't think
way
it
I'm
needs to be
concerned about
because
y'all
they're
not knowing how to
magicians.
swim.
No, I
'Cause if you
understand.
don't know
I'm
how to
saying that I think it's moot because it's a magician network, and
Yeah.
the idea is that they wouldn't be dealing with
The normies. The norms
You
need.
think
Yeah.
that, and then all of a sudden, Dylan Van Helsing shows up and tries to, jack your
We
magic.
wait. First off, we know, spoiler heavy. We know he and Dylan are not in terms where that would be a problem.
Which is true, but I'm just saying we know
Also, if your magic gets jacked, you definitely
who
die.
have the
so
ability. Oh, you just die?
that's what happened to Moreau.
Oh.
That's how he died. So you don't need a passport in death, as far as I know.
You're not going to the river Styx. You don't need to pay no toll.
Yeah, you good.
All right, you good then. You did. Well, you're not good.
I mean,
He's out. You out.
Right.
You out.
Paperwork is the least
you
of
out.
your.
No matter
worries.
what,
Yeah,
you out.
least of your
You
worries,
out.
like-
You're like, you don't. You're traveling already. It's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
been done. So Cosmo's full name is Cosimo Galileo Leonardo de Pazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Italian.
Yeah. This is again, I have, just because of how this world is, I feel like he inherited this house. Anyways, he is walking Amari through the house and is telling her that he needs to take her to see something. And this is the whimsy that I also enjoy. This isn't your regular house. This is a smart house, okay? So it's like a magical smart house. So much so that I was like intrigued by the possibilities of this house, but also in dismay at what I've seen happen when houses were too sentient, a la Smart House, the decom. Because you don't, as much as we all love Kathy Segal, you don't want her to be the house that you live.
No.
Not with her children. Don't mess with her. Don't threaten her babies.
So how does this house function? You may ask. Let me tell you. So first off, this house has feelings like the casita does in Encanto. It has feelings. So the house is like shaking in irritation because a guest has arrived, but it didn't know beforehand. And so now, like, they're like how we people would be rushing around our house trying to make things look decent before someone pops up. The house is like, how dare you?
I also kind of love that the sentient house, like people, just kind of slacks off. Because, like, why is it just not clean? Why is it just not ready for company?
But my thinking is that the house is already clean. It just has like certain standards for guests, and that it's like
right. It feels
but what I'm saying is that like the house has, like humans, a standard for themselves, an everyday standard, and then a standard for guests, as opposed to just always being at guest standard.
Right. Or even just like
it's a level of like not laziness, but like a level of
But if you're a lake house
or something,
if you're
there's like
a vacation house, so how often are you seeing people on a regular basis? Is like,
and I've seen
and there's also a comfortability of having certain things out.
Yeah. And I think it's just like didn't he say like it prides itself on being like a good host or something?
Yeah.
So it's just like, and I mean, there's that I don't know if it's a TikTok or if it came out before TikTok. It's been a while, but the one of like the person who's like pretending to be a mom who's just like, we've got to throw out everything. We have guests, and it's just like carrying all of the like cleaning supplies. I think it's just very
universal.
Yeah, the house is, just trying to put its best foot forward. And I think I really appreciate, like you said, Robyn, like just the whimsy and like, or Porshèa, one of you did, but just like the silliness of it too, because like we're about to get into a situation that's
awful,
really not great. And so, but just that it has these little moments of like, yeah, we're magicians and everybody thinks we're evil, but we also have this house that really wants to be clean. Like,
Want to put its
just-
best foot forward while I am
Yeah.
about to put my
Doesn't-
worst foot forward.
Right. Like, I
Right.
don't want you thinking that just because I'm messy right now, this is how I look every time. Like, I am
Right.
the lake house of Lake Loch Ness. Like, I have standards, okay? Please
Mhm.
believe. On if I would have known you were coming, whole different thing. I would have Loch
Exactly.
Ness cupcakes ready for you, okay?
Cosmo is like, please tell the house that it's okay, that
Yeah.
you love what is done with the place. Like, just
Yeah. Like, so tell the house it's quite clean. It's perfectly clean for you. Just so that.
Mhm.
And Amari, I love that Amari plays along. He's like, wow, this is one clean house. I sure wish my apartment looked this good.
Hilarious.
I love it so much. And then Cosmo just kind of like he undermines it by saying, "Good, things are quite stressful enough without having to deal with this self-conscious bag of bricks." Like, why would you?
Bro, be
We
nice.
just had to reassure this house. Why are you
The
playing
house
like
is
this?
listening.
Literally.
What's wrong with
What
you?
you doing? Also, I love that he's like, let's go into my study. Like, does the house not listen in your study? Is the study not part of the house? You just go into the study to talk mad shit about this house? And they don't hear that? All right.
All right, cool. Great
That show
logic.
safe space. Okay.
All right. So, but he does say, but this goes to say before he starts rearranging the hallways, and I'm like, so this is another thing where I'm like, Cosmo's effing up. So they start to walk in a direction of his study, but it's so far away that Amari's basically like panting by the time we get there. And for that, I say, if you can rearrange hallways, why not be like, hey, house, can you just give us some walkways while we get to the study, help us get there faster? Or like have the hallways change, and so that your study's right, like you just walk straight into your study. Why would you not do that?
I think the house has a lot of pride about what it looks like, and so it wants Amari to appreciate
To
it on her way
see the
to.
whole. the house is pulling up all the stuff. Like, hey, look at this closet. I organized it nicely. See this? Like, I love this house. Okay, so while they're walking to the study, Amari starts to question him. She says, before we go anywhere, I want to know if there's anyone from the League of Magicians responsible for the time freeze. And Cosmo seems annoyed and answers that, like, with absolute certainty, no League magicians cause that catastrophe. You should remember that magicians are far from the only beings with powerful magic. Like, he keeps condescending to her. You should remember, you are not aware. Why don't you know this already? Amari's relieved with the answer, but she's also asking, are there any magicians who are not part of the league who might have done it? And Cosmo's like, there's no such thing. There's only ever 2 born magicians in an age, and you and Dylan are the ones for now, and then there were the Night Brothers before you. And for age, that confuses me. So I'm like, is that generation? What is an age? Is that an era? Like, like how years and centuries are divided? Like, what is that? Is it a decade? Like, what is an age?
I think the way that I explain it to myself doesn't mean that this is correct, is that like when the born magicians start to like age out or like past maturity, I guess, when they reach their sunset years, then a new magician is born in order to like they can learn from their existing born magicians possibly and like have some level of like mentor mentee, but there isn't really that much competition, if that makes sense. Like if one was born per generation, then you could have seen like the Night Brothers fighting with like the other born magicians,
right?
Who, you know what I mean? So it has to be like.
I mean, I think Amari and Dylan are the first born magicians since the Night Brothers.
Since the Night Brothers, right? And so that's like for me, it's like when they are. So it's more dead. It's not like one dies and then another one's born, but like that, like waning, like their twilight years is when the new ones are born. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you think it's more about the magic making the age than it is about
Yeah,
like
kind of like the Avatar, because like the Avatar needs to be born before the old Avatar dies in
No,
order to like
no,
transfer. No,
no.
they are born when the Avatar dies.
After they die,
no, I thought they were
Yeah.
awakened after they died.
they are born
They're
after
born.
they die.
That's why they have to
The
spend all that
Avatar
time
has to be
looking for the
dead for
Avatar.
another one to come.
I
They have to be dead.
misunderstood that entire piece of that very important mythology. I thought, who's the Avatar before Aang?
Roku.
Roku. I thought Roku died and then Aang kind of like was awakened.
Nope, he died.
Aang
And
was
they're like,
not even born yet.
And that's also why they have to search for the Avatar afterward.
Yeah.
Like, because they don't know. They're like, yeah, they don't know which.
well,
who
then
it
that's
will
not
be.
a
They
good
know what
example.
tribe, but...
I think the magic, though, says like it's time for the next one to be born, or for the next age of the
To arise.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting theory. I think it's interesting to me. I think that's the most explanation we'll get because I've not seen an explanation of like what is an age of magic or whatever. So Amari also asked, like in that question about like if there are any magicians who are not part of the league. Cosmo, like I feel like for me the like it says the direction word is confidently, but also if he's saying this confidently, then I feel like he's like kind of like removed from the violence of this what he's saying. He says we in the league are magicians because Vladimir chose to share his magic and we have passed it through the generations. Rest assured, should any league magician wish to leave our order, they won't be taking their magic with them.
See, and I think that's why I thought that you could get your magic stolen and still survive, because like,
I mean, maybe that's the case for
it's like
maybe. Well, no. So maybe
It's
that's the
a
case
game.
for like magicians who are given their magic versus like
But not born.
born magicians.
Okay.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
what it is.
that
Maybe
I could
it's the
see
born
that.
magicians who, when their magic
Have
is
to die.
taken, they die. Because I'm just saying that's what happened to Moreau, but it could be because he was a born magician.
Yeah.
But if it applies to everyone, then I'm saying like the violence behind him being like, oh well, rest assured they do not leave with
Right.
out there with magic, but like they don't leave period because they're dead.
Exactly. Well, that's why I was like, then it's a gang.
Like,
you gonna get it in blood.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So she asked Cosmo, how is it that she is the only one who did not freeze on her bus if there's no magician like responsible for it? And Cosmo raises an eyebrow. That is an interesting question. I have my theory, so that really is a conversation for another day. We have more pressing concerns.
Like,
so
he does not
Cosmo
give
does
a
not know
fuck
that
about
information.
it's also like
time
she
period.
came to you.
He does not care.
Like you can't move her along to your agenda. You weren't coming to her until tomorrow.
Right. But he's like, no, you're here. Great. We can do what I'm. But I mean, he answers
I've
the
been
question,
planning on.
But he's
the least he can do is
not...
answer some questions whenever she pulls up at your door. That's the least he can do. So he darts off. He twists down multiple hallways. When they reach a short hallway with a dead end, she has to bend over to catch her breath again because the length of this house, okay, it is not a cute little cottage. It is not anybody's regular house. This is a manor under the lake. Please be sure. Cosmo is in the least winded. He is being very extremist, saying disaster could strike any moment. Ever since Bane declared his intention to root out hidden magicians, the League has been in an uproar. I'm doing my very best to advise calm, but it's only a matter of time before Bane gets too close. I shudder to think what might happen if a magician felt threatened and lashed out. It would be a disaster. And Amari's like, can you just tell them to not to? Like, aren't you in charge?
What's the point of you, sir?
Like, this isn't making sense. And so he answers that he's merely the steward and his authority is temporary and hardly complete. So he's only supposed to guide and only until a born magician can take over as its rightful leader. and he said it was his full intention to give both her and Dylan some time to grow up and be wiser and more skilled in their magic for them to start being like stewarded into leadership of the league. But now that all this is happening, he feels that it's no longer an option. And Amari's like, what is no longer an option? And he then bows before her and says, I'm offering you full leadership of our order to be yours until death.
The thing about this that makes me so annoyed is that, like, he states all of this to her as if it's like a monarchy in which this is the way it has been for generations,
as if
right?
she has known him for more than
as
2
if she,
minutes.
I mean,
right,
that,
as if she,
but
as if she was raised in this tradition, which she was not.
Mhm.
Two, as if Vladimir wasn't the one who started this shit.
Right.
He gone disband it.
Nobody else has happened. Nothing. No one else has shown up since then. Like, I don't even know if he's been. I don't know if he's been the steward the whole time. But like, y'all have just been pushing the stewards. Like, it's been a line of stewards. So you're saying this now, but like you're saying it like it's a tradition when it's never happened before.
And I'm sure like it's a tradition for you, but I just rolled up in here. This is my first time you're actually telling me anything.
And like
what does this have to do with me? Like, I was not raised in this tradition. I was not born with the knowledge to take over this league. This league ain't got nothing to do. I'm not even a part of your league. No one reached out to me and found me
outside because I don't know what's going on. Like, I do appreciate him saying that he wasn't going to like do this right away. Because again, he had their
Dylan
are children
in mind.
But like, I also think that you could still keep their age in mind. Like maybe, like, it's like find a different way.
Yeah,
forcing all of this.
Make them apprentices or something. Like make them apprentice as the league apprentice.
And y'all make the decisions. You're the adults. Like, why are you asking this 13-year-old to make
because they're born magicians? That's the only way. Because they're born magicians. Are you serious? You can't have them figure out something else. You can't figure out a different way to do this.
It's all of this is made up, and that's what is bothering me the most.
Yeah,
it's like. It you know what it gives me is like someone started a club in college and then they graduate and then there's a bunch of scrambling about like how are we going to keep this club going and nobody wants to take it on. Then the club just dies.
Disbands, disband the club.
Disband the club.
Well, Amari thinks he can't be serious. She says, you want me to lead the League of Magicians? And he says, you must. The league is in disarray.
It's like, what does that got to do with her?
I just got here. And
she's like, what is that? What makes you think they'll listen to me? I am 13.
Why am I in it?
Why am I in it?
Also, I am 13. Again, age, I'm still a child, sir. The thing that you considered when you, like, last year,
the first time?
that up.
You could have spent this whole year training me for this, is the other thing.
Right?
That's
like you're waiting on me to reach out to you.
He hasn't established any relationship with her for her.
Right. It's like you've been waiting for me to reach out to you for a year. You could have been showed up and just been like, hey, what's up? I want to teach you more about what it's like to be a magician. We can have an after school class. Like,
if you couldn't show up because you were afraid of being on a radar, you could have slipped some piece of paper or something somewhere, somebody to come meet you. You could have
find
something.
Find one of the other magicians to just be who happens to be in Atlanta. Like if you stand in Scotland, that's where you live. Fine. Find one of the ones who are nearby. Have them train her. Instead, you waited a whole year, and now there's a time freeze, and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna go see her tomorrow morning." Like,
and I'm like, "There's no way he don't know about Mrs. Walters. Like, they could have been at least an inroad to like help her out, like something. They may not be magicians, but they could have helped her out somehow. Like, you playing?
It's just,
and also, I'm just, why is this on her?
Because she's a born magician, Robyn. There's only 2 in age.
Mm-mm. Something don't smell right.
Yeah.
He want to quit.
No.
Then just quit.
No, that's not.
Find yourself another steward.
That's not what it is.
Because
think about all the regents of young monarchs. And they're like
He wants a
relatives
figurehead
who are
who
full
he can
adults.
blame.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do what he wants, but doesn't want to take on the blame for doing what he wants. He wants someone else to be the figurehead.
All under the auspice of following the rules. He was following the rules. He put a born magician.
This rule has never been, it's when it's made up, and it has never been enacted before. So
But
it's
he
just
can
like
say he did his
you.
job. He can say he did
I
his
think
job.
that he
though, at the
doesn't
end of
feel
the day.
comfortable making decisions as well. Like as the steward, it feels
Yeah.
like he's like, my whole
But,
point
okay.
is just to be here. But it's like somebody gotta make a
You
decision,
didn't.
and you're
You
making
certainly
the
didn't make a
decision.
decision to actually teach Amari anything. That's a
But
decision you
right,
did not make.
you could literally just have this time again, an after school program. It's just her. Dylan's in jail, so like
He couldn't have
y'all.
been an apprentice.
they
Like,
did all of this work too, just so like this was where like the great game comes in to like determine who's going to lead this league or whatever, and no work of how do we shepherd or make sure that the born magician of the age is ready for this responsibility.
Because
I mean,
There's
and I would
only
also
two
say
of them.
specifically lead the magicians into war, right? Because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's time for you.
well, we got to get to like.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other thing too. This is the main thing. I'm coming to. The conclusion I get to is because Amari's not supposed to. Nobody wants Amari to be the one. They want it to be Dylan. They're getting like the person is supposed. If the person is supposed to know all these things, they're supposed to understand all these things, and Amari doesn't know any of them, then Amari shouldn't be the one. So the person who's been groomed in the world and has connections in the world is the one who's actually prepared, because the requirements that Cosmo has put forth is that they're supposed to know these things. So Amari is even more shaken because the next thing that he does, it is reveal a crown, and it's a shimmering, and literally the house helps him reveal the crown in a very dramatic way. A shimmering black crown sits atop it in a velvet pillow, and Amari feels herself moving toward it before she can realize what she's doing. Her head goes fuzzy and warmth fills her chest like it does when she casts a spell. She has to shake her head to clear the haze, and then she asks, "What is it?" And Cosmo answers, "It's a treasure handed down from one of the Knight brothers, the crown of Count Vladimir." And Amari remembers that the last time she was in the same room with something that belonged to the Knight brothers was the black book that Dylan stole from the Burrow's vault. And Cosmo continues, and he says that the league has passed on Vladimir's magic through generations, but it's still Vladimir, so whoever wears his crown can summon all of it. So even though there's a portion of Vladimir's magic that has been passed among the magicians so that they can be magicians, there's also some that is attached to the crown that can only be worn by a born magician, and that has an additional amount of Vladimir's magic. And so he looks at Amari and he says, in all seriousness, "Will you accept it? Will you take your place on a midnight throne, and lead us against our enemies?" And Amari still has questions, as she should, because what the F is happening? And so she's like, she associates in her head, so he means Bane, because that's the last person he mentioned before he started this whole conversation, and the agents who sent over the magicians. And she says, "Is the Bureau your enemy?" And this is where Cosmo is like, oh, his eyes grow hard. "You might possess some loyalty to the magician hunters in the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, but my concern, first and foremost, will always rest with the survival of magician kind." So Amari's basically like, "You want me to choose between the Bureau and the League?" And he says, "I'm asking you to choose between what you like to be and what you already are and what you've always been. Being a magician is in your blood. You think that you have magic now, but the crown will grant you more than you ever thought possible. You'd be stronger than any magician who has ever lived. No one could stand against you."
Here's my problem with this speech. Is he's like appealing to kind of like her inner, let's say, culture or like her bloodline or whatever. But there's only two born magicians. The rest of y'all chose this life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't choose it, and Dylan didn't choose it. So why is it on me to stand with magician kind? You know what I mean? Like,
I think the thing is that he's trying to appeal to something that he does not know Amari. He knows the talking points that appeal to people who have grown up in this magical society and have put hierarchy over everything, wealth over everything. So he's talking in the same way that he would appeal to, like, again, Dylan. Think about the power you'll have. Think about the legacy you'll uphold. He's not talking to he's not trying to appeal to Amari senses. He doesn't know what Amari would appeal to Amari. He doesn't care what would appeal to Amari, because again, the person that in his mind, the person who should take the crown is someone where this argument would be effective to them, and that is Dylan.
And I think it also, like, makes it clear here, because, like, when the League of Magicians is introduced in the last book, they're kind of just like, yeah, we're the descendants of Vladimir, we keep to ourselves, we're pretty chill, right? Here you're like, okay, they're still
y'all
like
are not chill.
Not that, like, they're not chill, but also, like, your teachings are from the Knight brothers, right? And the Knight brothers were pretty, like, even, you know, not to say that they should be persecuted just because of who they are, right? And not to say that, like, some of this stuff isn't, like, insurance or protection for themselves so that they're not attacked in the way that, like, Bane wants to come after them, but also, like, the only way that they know is what they've been taught by a Knight brother. And it also doesn't sound like they've thought of changing things in 700 years. It doesn't sound like they're interested in changing things, especially in the way that he's, again, asking a 13-year-old to take the throne of magicians and fight against their enemies, aka the Bureau. So it's like, oh, so you just want to, like, start another war? Cool.
And that's
what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know how to fight in a war. I'm 13. Like, I'm just trying to get through middle school, right? My best friend is going to Oxford next year, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna, like, move on and go to school next year without my best friend. And you want me to lead a war? Like, be serious.
And that is exactly what he means. Like, it's funny because, like, it's Amari is not only turned off by his words, she's turned off by, like, the thrill in his voice stirs a growing sense of dread inside me, because he's talking about power accrual. He's talking about claiming power and using that power against others. And Amari is feeling like, I've made a terrible mistake coming here. And she is just she's like, what do you want me to do with all that power? And Cosmo's like, lead us into war if need be, defend us. Bane forced our hand. Our very existence wavers on a knife's edge. It would only take the capture of one magician to reveal our existence to the supernatural world. We must act, and we must act now. So for someone who says that he doesn't know or doesn't want to lead anything, like, he clearly has an idea about the next steps, what should be happening next, who should be leading it, and what it should look like. Like, he clearly is, like, does not mean what he's saying about, like, not wanting to lead stuff. And so Amari suddenly feels dizzy. She's can't believe that Cosmo's actually asking her to go against all the people she cares about the Bureau, including Quentin. And she's really, like, thrown by him suggesting a war. She's asking him for some time to make a decision. She says, please. He frowns. He says, time is one thing we don't have. And she says, I do not care. It is what I need.
I know,
and
that's
he shakes.
Right. Don't
he
you
shakes
let
his head
to make a decision.
Especially not in a direct.
You at least had a day, because you wasn't planning on coming to see me until tomorrow.
Come on, like, at least give me the night. Like, come on, something.
He shakes his head and says the others will hear of this, which is like, sir,
the others only hear about it if you tell them.
But also, are they gonna also hear about how you have not tried to help me understand anything about this world this whole time you've known I've been around for the past year? Do they know that too? Like, what are we talking about here? And
the first time she's hearing about, like, the expectation should not be when this big crisis is happening. Like, when when he showed up on that bench talking about what the League was, he could have easily said, and as a born magician, you are kind of expected to be a leader in this league. And let me know if you want to know more. So she could have her brain wrapping around the whole year about like what happens. Even if she thought it was going to be like when I get older, you know what I mean? He was going to give her the time to grow up. She would know that that is something that people are expecting of her just because of who she is.
I feel like he is all the way wrong by this is the second interaction he's ever had with her. And the first time he ever met with her, they only talked to each other for 2 minutes. The second interaction, this is he's throwing all of this at her. He should have built a relationship with her where this, even if it was like their 5th time they met, at least they have established a baseline of understanding of like what the league is,
some level of trust, even like you're a stranger.
You are a stranger, and everything that's coming out of your mouth screams violence and everything I'm against doing.
Yeah.
So,
and you've seen the video of me versus Dylan. You know what I'm against because I said it.
Right.
He was magician folk, and I was not going to stand for him being out here doing all the most. And I think okay, we're gonna get there. And I won't be the only magician to question whether you've chosen to place the bureau above the league. And Amari's like, just listen. If I can figure out how to end the time freeze, then the Supernatural World Congress would be free, and Bane would lose his position as Prime Minister. Things would go back to normal, and no one would be hunting you. And Cosmo doesn't answer, and instead she then adds, please, I don't want anyone getting hurt in some stupid war. You can't want that either. And then he finally says, I will give you as much time as I can. What does that even mean? His expression hardens again, but understand, refusing the crown comes with grave consequences. And Amari says, I understand. And then he responds, no, I don't believe you do, but I have a feeling that you will.
Sir, just tell her you're going to break Dylan out of prison. Like, be serious. Tell her everything. Like, explain to her what the options are.
Options are, that's my thing. I'm like, that was my in-chapter note, was like, something tells me, one, that Cosmo wouldn't treat Dylan the same way that he does Amari in this situation, with no time to think about it and no explanation about what was going on and the consequences of like leading a war and all that. Not even a task list of what the role is as a leader of the league or a description of like what that even looks like. Like, who takes a job without a full job description of what that entails? No one does. And she's right to stick by that, to not do it. And then secondly, like, he's sitting here saying all of this to her, and when I got to the show, I was like, if she had the gift of a premonition or a foresight, and she knew what would happen if she weren't to take the crown, would she have made the same decision? Because I don't feel like she would. I feel like she would have taken the crown, even though all the consequences of her being the one holding the crown would put her on a path that she didn't really necessarily want to be on. It would be better than what ends up happening. And I think Amari is self-sacrificing in that way would have taken the crown if she would have known better.
She's also like, as we've seen with the Walters, like, I'll do what's politically, or like I'll do what's expedient, while then giving myself time to plot out an escape route, right? So like, I think she would also, she would have taken it had she known, so that Dylan stays locked up, and then in her brain it's like, okay, I can play the game while still holding on to like figuring out who did this and like, you know, preventing war, but at least I'll prevent war and prevent this nonsense going on within the league. Like, so I agree with you, Porshèa, but and I also agree with you that like they, or Cosmo at least, there's like this amorphous they of the league as well,
they never clear about it.
Like where this pressure or who these other magicians are, and like, you know, I'll have to tell them that you needed to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, right. But I do think that like at least Cosmo didn't want Amari as the leader and wanted Dylan all along, but also were willing to accept Amari if she would be basically like queen in name only. And I'm still running stuff behind the scenes. Like, don't, because it is very much like, don't worry about it. Just say yes. And I'll take care of all, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you expect her to say yes to this? And she doesn't know what this entails. This is not a real thing. She's not learning about it at summer camp of like, you could join this department or that department. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm like in a place that has like in a world where there is an organization like the Bureau, and they're the magicians consider the Bureau their opposition. Like the least they can do is to organize a similar structure to ease, like, again, I think that's why I'm saying, like, my suspicion is that they do not want Amari to be there, because like they have not put anything in place where an outsider, quote unquote, could be feasibly understand and pick up the leadership role in a way that would actually be beneficial to everyone. So I'm like, if you don't do it, that is a prerogative. Like that is a measure that you have in place because you have a specific person in mind, and you're trying to not open it to more than that one person.
And again, that also belies the point that this is like never happened before.
Yeah.
They've
but like if you really were trying to like make it fair to the two people that because at the end of the day, you know, there's only two people who qualified for this position, and you're not trying to make it equal for both people to get this position.
Yeah. All right, we should end this, wrap it up. So who is your MVP?
Wrap it up, B. I gave the Mrs. Walters my MVP, just because they were the most helpful to Amari, to be honest, and were very, very entertaining while doing so. Like Cosmo is kind of not, I don't even know if helpful is the right word, but it's also not entertaining while giving her the information that she's requesting. The house is, but he's not.
Yeah.
I also gave my MVP to Mrs. Walters because, again, that was a bit of whimsy that I enjoy and I do like, and the explanation, like something like the part of me that really just loves a clever answer to a question really just like felt the fun and the answer being, duh, there's more than one of them. Like for all the things, like sometimes you're just like, wait a minute, what's going on over there? I love that being the answer, and I love that it's a question they were able to answer for her before they dipped, and that just is like a fun kind of coda to the whole experience for her.
And I know that they're not even human women, and they're green, but they've lived in the neighborhood long enough. They just give like strong black auntie vibes. And like the black auntie who you don't want to mess with, but also is gonna like let you know what's what. Don't coddle the baby. That's what they give me. Tell the baby what's going on.
And they're also gonna be the first ones to say something about, why ain't that baby got no socks on? Like
exactly.
They're gonna be
Exactly. I love them. I did give Elsie my MVP though, just because I just think she's very good at, like, again, she still has to do this thing for herself. She's still dealing with her mom or whatever, but like she is there for Amari, and like, you know, that whiteboard was a great move. Love that. It's just, she said, all right, we're investigating again. The team's back together. Let's go. Like I loved that. So
Elsie is to whiteboards what Bayana is to spreadsheets.
Yes. I feel like my canon for Elsie is that she has a whiteboard budget that her mom knows, like, it's like, okay, this came out the whiteboard budget, and she, everywhere she goes, like, she spends a lot of time at, there's a whiteboard specifically for her. So she goes to her grandma's house, like,
the meeting room for one wall is a whiteboard.
Yeah.
I imagine that Elsie's like room at home is like 4 just whiteboards.
Right.
It's probably like a secret like a chamber that is opening up behind her.
And then her mom is just like looking at her Hermes account and being like, another whiteboard? Like, I thought we talked about.
She must have had inspiration again.
She must have went to another location where she needed a whiteboard.
She's like, maybe I should get her one of those e-readers.
Right.
Those
No, she
those
needs support. She needs
e-notebooks,
something.
those
E-notebooks.
e-notepads.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Binged.
This one was actually hard because, like, I've talked so much about how I love the pacing of these books and stuff, but like, I benched Bane, but Cosmo made points at the end, but I just was like 2.5 chapters of Bane tripping, and then that one chapter of Cosmo, and I assumed, like I did last week, where I was like, Van Helsing will get his time, that Cosmo will definitely get his time to shine. So I gave it to Bane. Special shout out to Cosmo for also sucking. But Bane just really gives me like, why are we still you still talking about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we still mad about that thing?
And I think his like response to the time freeze is also what pushes Cosmo, right? Like it's not like Cosmo wasn't gonna do that on his own, right? So like that's also why I binged Bane, and like he's kind of the catalyst for.
I also think there's something like very sinister about taking a tragedy and exploiting it for your own agenda so quickly. I mean, we know when, and like, isn't he the baddie too? It's like he did it, right?
No.
Oh, I thought he did it.
I can't remember if he did. If he might have been involved. I can't remember if he was involved or not, but he's not the.
I don't think he's
baddie. But I think
he's not the one who. Yeah.
He's not the top baddie.
He's not the doer. He's not the doers, but he's not the
Okay, but and that kind of makes it even worse because it is just like an actual tragedy that he immediately was like, well, how can I use this to push my own agenda? As opposed to, I'm going to make this tragedy so I can push my own agenda.
Right.
So gross.
I have guns for both of them, so I took them both out. And I also I just really like I hate a tyrant. I hate ascension to ranks and to like once you get to a level like of power, your idea of use of power is suppress others. I hate that so much. Cosmo, I don't know what he did to become a steward, but I wouldn't question if he did some shady stuff to get there because he has methods that I don't agree with overall. And I also what did I want to note? Oh, I also feel a way about the fact, and this is like a light key honorable mention to the Bureau, but I also am blaming Bane for this, of Amari cannot conceptualize being able to visit Quentin without being part of the Bureau. Like, how dare they not allow Quentin's family access to him while he's receiving medical care because they're not part of the Bureau? That pisses me off. And to really, like, to take away Amari's access to her brother while when she was the one who found him, and she has not been able to see him this whole time because he was away in Australia, and now you're taking away her ability to see him while he's in the same freaking city as her, is dreadful, corrupt, morally bankrupt behavior. F you, Bane, for that. And so that's what I specifically have for Bane.
Period. Thank y'all for listening. Make sure you let us know your MVP and benched. You can put it in the form. It's in the show notes or on our website, Black Nerds Create. Or you can just, maybe not tweet, but like put it in the comments or on Instagram or Tumblr and let us know who your MVP and benched are and why. And then we'll be back next week for chapters 7 through 9.
Wizard Team is a part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. Bye, y'all.
Bye.